Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 1 of our story. If you like this What If story and want to see part 2, let me know in the comments below. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Also, check the description for more great content and my playlist. This story was posted by Sesake on Wattpad. Now let's start. Izuku's eyes shot open. He slowly sat up, a hand against his head as he grimaced from the killer headache he had. He frowned as he looked around his current surroundings, finding himself at the entrance of an alleyway. He got up and exited, looking around for any distinguishing landmarks that could tell him where he was. That was when he noticed Tokyo Tower in the distance. He frowned at it. For some reason he felt something was off about this situation. He looked down at himself and found that he was wearing some kind of outfit that he didn't remember, and while it was a little loose on him, he felt it was important to him. He began walking towards the nearest train, his only thought being that he needed to get home. When he found he had no cash or anything anywhere on his outfit, he asked around, and thankfully an old lady passing by was kind enough to pay for his fare. Once he got onto the train, he noticed how people were giving him odd looks. Not that he could blame them. He definitely didn't look like a normal high schooler. His outfit looked like it was for combat, with armor plating, reinforced steel boots and gauntlets. And it was also slightly torn and definitely dirty, as if he had been a part of some big battle. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain in his head right before memories began to pour into his head. He bowed his head and grabbed it with both of his hands, a look of fear and surprise covering his face. He remembered now, or at least most of his memories. He remembered that more than a year ago he had met All Might and that he got his dreams crushed. Then he remembered the meeting with the League of Villains, and how he joined them. He then remembered that he began training, and then it skipped forward a few months where he became an important asset to the League while also having honed many skills. He remembered going with the League to the USJ, and how he had fought with Bakugo. Then the guilt and how he had begun to lose himself to his villainous alter ego. Then becoming AFO's successor, and how by then his alter ego had complete control of him. And then finally, the war, and how he had hurt people before both him and his friends, if he could really call them that, were attacked and killed. He remembered how he had been badly injured, and that before he lost consciousness, 𝐀𝐮 had grabbed him and thrown him into a portal. But if that had happened, then things didn't make sense. Why was he perfectly okay? The only sign he had been in a big battle was the condition was his outfit, but his body was perfectly fine. And so was Tokyo, but it should have been almost completely destroyed. And not only was his body fine, but it was back to being the way it had been when he first met All Might. Simply put, he was scrawny, a toothpick, all the muscles and other signs of his training completely gone. His hair was also back to its normal black and green, as if Izuku had never dyed it to begin with. Izuku felt the pain in his head subside a bit and looked up. His little freakout had earned him even more glances from those nearby. He grinned sheepishly and looked around the compartment. That was another thing, not only his body, but also his mind. At least to a small degree. He felt a hint of his old nervousness and anxiety, though only a bit. Izuku still mostly had his usual calmer and sure personality. Though he was thankful for that change though, because it helped with Deku. Izuku gave a small start when he heard a voice whispering into his ear, but when he turned to look, there was no one there. He shook his head and looked back forward. When he did, he noticed something that confused him much more than anything else had. Across the compartment from him was a man in a business suit. But it wasn't the man that had his attention, rather the newspaper in his hands. Deku could make out the date, but there had to be some kind of misprint or the man wasn't reading the newspaper from that day. Because the date was from more than a year ago. In fact, it was the same day he had met All Might. Izuku heard the voice from earlier, but this time he could hear it better, and while it was doing some twisted laugh, he barely paid attention to it. The voice was very familiar. He had listened to that voice for more than a year. It was similar to his, but at the same time it was different. Darker, colder, twisted, and with a small spark of insanity. It's Deku. He should have known, should have realized it as soon as he did with the other changes to him. While mentally he was slightly like he used to be, he was mostly the same. So that must have been the same with Deku. Izuku could now sense his presence, but thankfully, Due to whatever had happened to him, it wasn't as strong. Deku didn't have enough power to control him, but from what Izuku could tell, he would still be there. Almost like listening to a shoulder angel and devil, except there was no angel, and the devil was a bit more taunting and aggressive than what would be shown on TV. As he sorted these thoughts out, he could hear Deku's voice. "Congratulations, Izu, what do you want?" "A cookie." "That's right, I'm here to stay, and I'll be watching you wherever you go. So you better get used to having a roommate in your head." Izuku did his best to ignore him, choosing to try and figure everything else out. He was so lost in thought that he nearly missed his stop. He got up and exited the train, taking deep breaths as he looked around the familiar landscape. Unsure of what to do next, he decided to go to his house, thinking that he might be able to figure something out when he got there. Though he preferred to find something out sooner since he wasn't too excited about going home. From what he could remember, he had left to help protect his mother, but he also knew that she was hurt and worried from his suddenly leaving without a word. As he walked, he continued to figure out what happened. It was like he had traveled back to the past somehow in either of two ways. But both of those ways had flaws in the theory. One was that he was just straight up transported. But that didn't explain either his physical or mental condition. The other idea was that only his memories or consciousness were transported. But then why was he in Tokyo and why was he in his outfit, which had obvious signs of battle? Though he couldn't come up with a cause for either theory. He remembered being flung into one of 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫's portals, but his quirk tore rips in reality. Deku made it harder to think with his constant insults and other interruptions. Izuku started to get really annoyed with his alter ego and decided to enlist his help while also trying to distract him. "Oi Deku, if you're going to be in my head you can at least help me out with this. Consider it as you paying rent, besides, I'm sure you would like to get back to what we were doing." Murder and destruction, Deku muttered. "And taking control of this body again, you're right. Figuring things out and changing them back does sound good. But I have no idea either. Quirks can change or mutate, or have sides to them that even their owners don't know about. What if that traitor somehow fed up when he made that portal and sent us back in time? Alright, but then how do you explain the effect on my body?" "My body? I'm in control right now, so shut the F up. How about a compromise and we'll call it our body?" "Shut up, we need to figure this out. What if we're in some illusion? Then what about our mental state? Wouldn't we be fighting for control of this body before I finally won it back again? Yeah, I wouldn't give my body up so easily. Though you do have a point." Deku was about to suggest something else, when he heard something around the corner. He turned at the corner and looked down the path, wondering what was happening. But nothing could have prepared him for what he saw. Even Deku didn't know what to say at the scene. Down the path under a small underpass was him. He was looking at the scene from the day he met All Might. Speaking of which, he was also there, in his muscle form. Something he shouldn't have been able to do anymore. He watched at the him that was with All Might, bowing to the hero as he thanked him for his autograph. Mentally, both Izuku and Deku looked at each other in confusion. Izuku looked back just in time to see the other Izuku grab onto All Might right before the hero jumped off with the young student still holding onto him. Izuku quickly turned and ran, heading towards the building where he had, and the other him would, talk to All Might. As he did, Deku was quiet. Even he was confused and was being serious about this. It took longer than he would have liked, though it was the best he could do considering the distance and most importantly, his sudden lack of any physical prowess. By the time Izuku had got there, the talk had obviously ended a short while ago since the other him was already exciting the building. Izuku was about to hide, expecting him to come this way, but then something happened that confused him and Deku more. After Izuku had his talk with All Might, his mind had gone slightly numb, but he was able to get a hold himself before walking home. But the other him still seemed to be out of it and instead walked the other way. When Izuku looked in direction he was going, he saw smoke and realized that Bakugo was currently being attacked by the sludge villain. He realized that if the other him was still out of it, then he must have just been moving instinctively, and back then it had been normal for him to go to things like this for a chance to see heroes in action. Izuku followed him, making sure that he wasn't detected by the other him, though it would be hard to get noticed with his current state of mind. They soon arrived at the scene, and that was when the other Izuku finally seemed to snap out of it and notice where he was. Izuku could see that he was about to leave when he stopped as he recognized the villain as the one who had just attacked him. Izuku watched the scene, and for a second he was able to catch a glimpse of Bakugo's fave through all the sludge that made up the villain's body. Izuku didn't think much of it, mostly because he already knew, and while he remembered Bakugo apologizing to him, he still disliked the guy. But the other him didn't think so little of it, because suddenly he made his way through the crowd and ran towards the villain. Izuku watched with wonder as he saw the other him take off his backpack and throw it at the villain, buying him a few seconds that he used to helplessly claw at the villain. Izuku shook his head at how useless it was, but then that was when All Might appeared in his muscle form and beat the villain with a single punch while grabbing both Bakugo and Izuku. Izuku watched in fascination at how different everything seemed to be going, and when the other him finally left, he decided to follow him. While he did, Deku suggested an idea about what might have happened to them. At first Izuku didn't think it was possible, but as Deku explained, he began to realize that the alter ego was most likely right. After a short time walking, Izuku stopped when he noticed All Might turn a corner and talk to the other him. He listened in curiosity at what the pro had to say, but it was safe to say he wasn't expecting what All Might said. All Might seemed to have done a complete 180 from before, saying how Izuku ran in without thinking just to save Bakugo was similar to the best and truest heroes. He then told Izuku that he had been wrong, and that he too could be a hero. Then even more surprisingly, All Might told him about his power and how he wanted Izuku to be his next successor. Deku watched in amusement as the other him became truly confused and began muttering. But eventually he calmed down, and after All Might asked if he would agree to it, Izuku looked at him and simply said, yes. Izuku smiled and began walking away, knowing that him showing up wouldn't be too good of an idea. All Might would probably try and attack, thinking he was a villain trying to trick him. For now, both he and Deku agreed that it was best if they tried to get back, but they didn't know how. They would also need a place to stay while he was there. That was when an idea occurred to Izuku, and Deku also thought it was a good idea. A half-hour later, he stood in front of a door at an apartment complex. He knocked on the door, Deku muttering something about not being able to watch the show he was about to see. A few seconds later the door opened, revealing a teen Izuku's age. What do you want? Hey there 𝐀𝐮, you don't know me, but I know you. And we need to talk, man. Izuku walked into the apartment, 𝐀𝐮 closing the door behind him and locking it. Izuku walked straight for the living room, knowing the layout from having been there once, and sat down on a couch next to AI who was watching TV. AI looked at him, confused at how he just walked in and sat next to her, and wondered what he was even doing here. All right, talk, who the hell are you? 𝐀𝐮 asked. And you seem to know the layout of this place, so I would like to know how is it that you think you know me? Ooh, you're being pretty serious. Either I caught you guys in the middle of one of your arguments or antics, you're shaken up, or something else has you bothered. Hey AI, am I close? 𝐀𝐮 began to raise a hand, and guessing it was an attack, Izuku held up his hands. Whoa dude, chill. Man, I remember you being more fun than this. Either I'm really annoying you or this is another difference. Now as for how I know about you guys, and not just you two but your whole group, there is a simple, but kinda unbelievable explanation for that. Well, I haven't really figured which one it is. Just get to the point already, 𝐀𝐮 growled. Alright, so theory one is that I somehow traveled through time. The other is both that and that I traveled from another dimension. An alternate universe. 𝐀𝐮 and AI looked at him for a second, but then 𝐀𝐮 lifted his hand again. Alright, I've already had enough of this CRP. I'll make you regret coming here to mess with us. 𝐀𝐮 Refuto, twin brother of Teo Refuto and has 3 younger siblings. Your parents are divorced, probably because of all the stress and emotions that they went through when you were kidnapped. You spent a few years pretty much living as a gladiator, and to this day, you still have the occasional nightmare from that time. Your quirk allows you to pretty much rip holes in reality, allowing you to create portals, slice things, or create your own little pocket dimension where you store things. At least as far as you know. But I believe your quirk can do more than that. You were the one who ended up sending me here, though it wasn't intentional. 𝐻𝗫𝐿 instantly scowled at Izuku at the mention of his past. As soon as he was done talking, he stepped forward and grabbed Izuku's neck. "How the hell do you know about that stuff? And don't feed me that CRP about time travel or interdimensional travel." Even with his neck being grabbed, Izuku smiled up at 𝐻𝗫𝐿. "But it's the truth. Let me tell you, it was weird seeing another me, especially when they do things differently than I had. Now let's see, proof, what to use as proof. I know. First rule of this group is we don't talk about Maria's height. She'll kill you. Second rule, don't mess with her friends or she really will become a demonic beast of destruction. Third, don't get between either 𝐬𝐬 or 𝗵𝐸𝐿 and food." 𝐻𝗫𝐿 loosened his grip, looking at Izuku in surprise. "Hold up, I made that up as a joke? One I haven't told anyone yet," Izuku corrected. He turned to AI who was just watching them, apparently finding some kind of interest in this. "Well, anyway, it's not like I asked to be sent here, but I got to say, it's better than the alternative. I'll take this over getting killed. Now if only you had made it too, then it would be at least a bit easier to convince you. Though you would probably think AI was messing with you again. Actually, if you were able to make it as well, then this might not have happened. You did kind of fling me through that portal with pretty much your dying breath. Well, whatever, let's start the long and probably kinda boring talk to finally convince you." And so he did, and while it wasn't easy, Izuku was eventually able to convince 𝐻𝗫𝐿 and AI, as well as Maria and 𝐬𝐬 who showed up halfway. After some more discussions and negotiating, Izuku was able to convince them to allow him to stay with them, at least for the time being. While he didn't remember the reason why it had happened, he knew there would be a change that would help him take care of that. If his plan worked, that is. Izuku didn't remember everything, but he remembered bits and pieces. The most important one being what happened at the end. He wanted to do more than get away back. And even if he wanted to go back, it's not like he could expect 𝐻𝗫𝐿 to just know how to just because Izuku told him he could. Before he returned, he wanted to take care of a few things first. He already took care of one, having made sure that the League didn't come and take the other him away. While they didn't make a move yet, he didn't know if they would later. Or if they even know about him in this world. He remembered what he had gone through and didn't want the other him to go through the same. He also wanted to figure out who it was that attacked him and the others at the end. But he knew it wouldn't be easy, especially since the only thing he knew was that there was a bright flash of light. He also wanted to help people. He wanted to at least begin to atone for his sins in his own world, and he wanted to stop the people who ruined it. But he wasn't completely sure how to proceed. Even if they were at the bar, it wasn't like he could beat them alone. And 𝐻𝗫𝐿 and his group wouldn't be a match for AFO if he made his appearance. He also believed that it was because the League had been weakened before that the mystery guy appeared. He wanted to gather some information, at least know what he was dealing with, before sending up a signal that he could make a move. Izuku spent the next few months creating a fake identity so he wouldn't be recognized, while also training. Since his body was back to the way it had been, he retrained it, and even became a vigilante with 𝐻𝗫𝐿 and his group. While doing this, he also tried to gather information, but no matter where he looked, he couldn't find any information on the guy. The time quickly flew by, and now, it has been 10 months since Izuku appeared in this world. In order to hide his identity, he took a new name and changed his appearance even better than when he was a villain. He decided to keep the name 𝐬𝐬𝐴 from the fake identity he used to use when talking with the students from UA. But he realized he couldn't use the same last name. Before he made sure not to get close to anyone who had known him, so it didn't matter that his real and fake name were nearly identical. But now he had to do better, especially since there was another Izuku. In the end it was decided that he would use 𝐬𝐬𝐴's family name, 𝐻𝗫𝐿. As for his appearance, since he knew there was another him, he had to step up his game in order to remain undetected. He dyed his hair black again, but also decided to shave the sides, leaving a mop of hair on the top and back. He made the top shorter, but left enough in the back in order to tie it into a small ponytail. He got red contacts to hide his natural green. He would also wear a pair of goggles on his head, both for looks and for when he flew. He also worked on the persona for his persona, but that was easy since he already wasn't the nervous wreck he used to be, and the other Izuku was bound to be. Izuku was currently standing outside of UA. He decided that in order to help him keep an eye of things and possibly learn some important information, it would be a good idea to get into the hero course. Hopefully 1A, because even without all his memories he knew they were a trouble magnet. Izuku began walking forward but stopped when he noticed the other him. He started walking towards him, wanting to find out how well his disguise would work now rather than when they were stuck in the same class. But before he could reach him, he saw him trip. But before he could hit the ground, 𝗬𝗏 appeared and used her quirk to catch him. He stopped and watched the two of them socialize a bit, before 𝗬𝗏 walked off and into 𝐸. He decided not to bother with trying to talk with Izuku, and instead, he walked inside. Everyone was soon separated according to the course they were trying to enter before being sent to rooms for the written portion of the exam. Izuku was quickly able to finish it. His time as a villain had taught him many things, and while he didn't have all his memories, he found that when he tried to study he just seemed to know most of it. After everyone who was there for the hero course had finished their test, they were all sent to a large auditorium. Once everyone was seated, Present Mike came onto the stage. "Welcome all of you listeners to my live show," Mike said in his usual loud tone. "Can I get a yee-hee-ah? Yee-hee-ah, Izuku shouted out. Because why not? If he was going to have to relive this year on the bright side instead of the dark one, well, why not have fun while he was there? Alright, it seems we have a bit of a tough crowd, though I do appreciate that one enthusiastic listener over there. Alright, I'm going to give you the lowdown on how this will go down. Are you ready?" Izuku realized he heard some muttering and turned to see the other him not too far away. "Man, you really were a wimpy little nerd," Deku muttered. Izuku ignored the comment and turned his attention back to Present Mike. "We'll be testing your mettle by putting you in mock battles. Everyone will be split up into 7 different urban areas that we have set up. There you will encounter robots who will be serving as our foe villains. There will be 3 different types, each giving you 1 to 3 points depending on their difficulty." Before he could continue on, a student stood up and got his attention in order to ask a question. Izuku saw that it was Ida, and once again Deku made a comment. "Wow, he sure does seem like he has a stick stuck real far up his butt." "Yeah, I prefer the version of him from after having spent some time with the people of UA," Izuku thought. He was at least a bit more laid back then. "Though I'm sure we can make him chill out." Over the past few months, Izuku and Deku had reached at least a bit of an understanding. Since they both had the mutual goal of getting back and defeating the guy who had attacked him, they had made a slight truce. Deku didn't really have the power to take control of Izuku anymore anyways. After Ida asked his question and Mike explained there was another giant robot worth 0 points, he turned around and looked at that world's Izuku. "And you there with the curly hair. Can you sit still and be quiet? You're distracting. If you think UA is just some place of pleasure, then you better get out." "Never mind, I think I like this guy," Deku said. "He has some bite to go with that bark. Now I hope he doesn't change. He may be uptight, but he seems tougher. To realize such a thing will be defanged in the near future is sad." "Shut it." After that, Present Mike finished explaining some final rooms before dismissing them. Most people got changed into gymmer athletic clothes, but Deku kept his clothes on. He did, however, take off his shoes, which were no longer his trademark sneakers, because by now that had become a big part of his identity. The clothes he was currently wearing were his goggles, an unzipped black jacket with a plain red shirt underneath, and a pair of jeans. A few minutes later, Izuku stood in front of a giant gate that led to the urban area they would be fighting in. After looking around, he noticed that neither Bakugo or the other Izuku was there. Though he did see Mayonetta. As soon as he did, the mental image of Deku grew a large sadistic grin, and Izuku had to cover his mouth so no one would see the grin that had started to form on his own face. As far as he could remember, Mayonetta didn't really do much of significance other than getting people to hate him. Since a student would be removed from the hero course because of him joining, then why not the nasty little grape? Present Mic's voice then came through the speakers and he was snapped out of his thoughts. The gates began opening as he began counting down, and Izuku pulled his goggles down over his eyes. Once the gates were fully open and Present Mike said go, Izuku instantly flew off. With his high mobility and firepower, both literal and not, Izuku was able to quickly defeat multiple of the robots. He also had a basic idea of their weak spots, and made sure to take advantage of them. He would keep seeing 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐷 around. The small grape boy would use his quirk to keep villains in place or pretty much make them destroy themselves. While he didn't have his memories, Izuku didn't really like the boy, and he really didn't question it. He would sometimes swoop in and steal his kills, taking the points for himself. After seeing him do this, a couple people realized how easy it was and began doing the same. 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐷 was never the strongest-willed person unless it came to women, so he quickly began panicking, making it even harder for him to earn points. In his frenzy, 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐷 ended up sticking one of the other examinees in place, getting him disqualified. After most of the 10 minutes for the exam had passed, Izuku decided that he had gotten enough points. By his estimate, he had around 60 points, and he knew that should be enough for him to pass. He landed on the road below, pulling up his goggles before beginning to walk back towards the entrance. But as soon as he did, he could feel the ground begin to shake and heard people shouting, "Yo, Izuku, I think they let that 0-pointer out." Yeah, I'm not an idiot." Izuku pulled his goggles back down and flew into the air, looking for the large 𝐻𝐻𝐷. It didn't take long as it was taller than the buildings. "Hey, let's kill it." "Why, so you're sadistic but can have some fun. It's not worth any points." "Not any combat points." "I know, I'm not an idiot. I know about the other point system, but we still don't need to fight it. We should have enough points already. Come on, you little beach, I want to see how easily we can beat it." Izuku shook his head before grinning. "Well, I guess you have a point. It would be nice to see how good we've gotten." Izuku flew towards the robot, gathering a massive amount of flames. Once he began to get close, he gathered them together and shaping them into a massive sword. He took aim and swung his arm, shooting the blade at a spot on the robot that was less protected. It staggered back both from the force and as its circuits were damaged. Izuku wasted no time, shooting flames into the ventilation system, quickly burning it up from the inside. The robot began to slow down, jerking and twitching every now and then as its system overheated as fire coursed through the vents instead of air that should have been cooling it. Izuku decided to end it by making the flames erupt inside of it, creating small explosions all over its body. Slowly, the robot began to tip backwards, falling to the ground. The moment it hit the ground, Present Mick's voice could be heard again, announcing that the exam was now over. As Izuku lowered himself to the ground, he noticed that some people had begun to gather, staring at him in awe. Deciding to avoid the crowd of seemingly new fans and flew back into the air towards the gate. Meanwhile, the heroes who worked at UA watched the screens in amazement. There were two amazing candidates. One who had led a seemingly normal and unimpressive life, and the other a mystery. Little did they know, the two they were impressed by were the same person. Meanwhile, Izuku got on the bus, not worrying about having passed or not. The only thing he thought about was how he was once again starting a new life. 𝐬𝐻𝐻𝐷 got up and after doing his usual morning routine and showering to clean the sweat off, he put on his uniform. He had gotten his acceptance letter a week after the exam, and he discovered he had ranked number 1 with Bakugo in second place, which he knew he wouldn't like. Afterwards, he had submitted a costume design so the support companies could make his hero outfit. He decided to keep it mostly the same, though he did make some changes. He removed his weapons from it. The reasons for this was because he used the ones he had whenever he went on for vigilante duties, and it would be bad if people noticed if their fighting styles were similar. As a vigilante, he also didn't use his quirk, relying only on his fighting skills and helping to make it even harder to figure out his identity. However, he didn't use his gauntlets and shield. Instead, he fought without any protection for his hands except for boxing tape. And he also didn't use the rest of his outfit, having to ditch it, not being able to repair it. He also decided to change up his costume design slightly as well, deciding to make some changes. Now that he wasn't hiding his quirk, he was able to get an outfit that both protected him and helped with his quirk. The looks were also slightly changed, both to match his quirk and fighting style, and because he wanted to make sure to not be too close to whatever the other him came up with. 𝐬𝐻𝐻𝐷 walked into the kitchen, quickly grabbing a small plate of breakfast that 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐷 had made for him. Meanwhile, 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐷 was in the kitchen making breakfast for everyone else, and both as usual and slightly to AI's annoyance, he was shirtless. 𝐬𝐻𝐻𝐷 had quickly gotten used to this, with 𝐀𝐮's policy being that unless he was leaving the house or people were coming over, then it wasn't a problem. AI had once tried to counter by asking him how he would react if she did that, but he said that he both didn't care nor would she actually do it, which he was right. 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐬𝐵 finished his food and was leaving just as AI came out and began complaining about 𝐀𝐮, waking up the other two. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬 ran to UA, using this as a small workout as he thought about his new life in this world. After he began living with them, they decided to move to a small house with 2 more rooms. The girls got their own rooms, and since 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬 made pretty much all their money, he also got his own. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬 worked as a doctor during the day, with most of his vigilante work being to heal the others. The other 3 also had a daytime identity, going to school, while also disguising themselves since they were runaways. He had also met the others, and after explaining his situation, they were glad to help. Though 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐬 felt that even though he said he wanted to help others and repent for his crimes, some of them wanted to get rid of him and send him back to his own world. Well, he hadn't actually met with Kat. No one knew who she really was and she wasn't willing to share. Though she was a nice person who would sometimes chat with the other girls. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐬 believed she wasn't from or in Japan, something he hadn't noticed before. The others agreed with him. They all had noticed that she never seemed tired while they worked at night, but then they found it harder to reach her until around 2 to 4 in the afternoon. But whenever they asked, she would either dodge the question or deny it. They all just agreed to not bother, respecting her privacy. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐬 was snapped out of his thoughts when he found himself at UA's front gates. He walked in remembering the way there. When he opened the door, he only found Iida and Yaoyorozu since he was a little early. He decided to just sit in a random seat, knowing that a more official seating arrangement would be made later. He had barely sat down when he found Iida standing in front of him. "Hey there, can I help you?" 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐬 asked. "I mostly just wanted to introduce myself. I am Tenya Iida, and I hope that we can get along." Iida held out his hand. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐬 smiled and shook his hand. "I'm 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬, and the feeling is mutual." "Wait, does this mean you are the one who got the highest rank during the entrance exam practical test?" "Oh really, I guess that means you must be quite skilled," Yaoyorozu said as she walked over from her seat. It's not that big of a deal. The person in second place got more villain points than me." "Not by that much," Iida said. "In fact, the third place person was about 30 villain points behind you both. Besides, the other person had no hero points, while you had a decent amount. I think that shows that you're both a skilled fighter and have the right attitude for a hero. I, however, didn't realize that there was such a hidden system and am disappointed in myself for that." "Well, I only knew because I've talked to someone who took the test before. Besides, I don't think I really did that many heroic things. I think the biggest source of those points was for fighting the 0-point villain while everyone else ran. But I guess you could say that because there was a little voice in my head that just wanted to fight it." "In straight, though I don't like how you called me little just now," Deku said. "Besides, you wanted to fight it too." 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬 ignored him, not showing any outward sign that there was a voice talking to him in his head. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬 continued to talk, people beginning to come in. He was slightly glad that Bakugo came in, taking attention away from 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬 so he didn't have to keep asking questions that he already knew the answers to. Bakugo sat in a seat, propping his feet on the desk. He looked a little annoyed, even before Iida began telling him to put his feet down, and 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬 thought it was because he didn't rank first. Bakugo ignored Iida at first, looking around for someone he thought looked strong enough to be the person who had grabbed first. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬 had gotten good at manipulating his presence, being able to both release killing intent or hiding his presence. Though he found killing intent and other types of things easier, probably because Deku could help him with that. Right now he did his best to make himself appear relaxed and as not much of a threat, but Bakugo still locked eyes with him and gave a small scowl. "I hate Fing perceptive he is," Deku muttered. "Yeah, it definitely makes things a bit harder." 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬 just gave a smile and small wave before looking away. After that, Bakugo began arguing with Iida, threatening to put him in his place. After a while, everyone was there but 2 people. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬 knew Izuku had gotten in because he was also in the top 10 rankings, and the other was either Uraraka or maybe someone else. He didn't really think it was Teo because he had barely made it in last time, and having 2 other people pass would result in him not passing. Either that or there was a slight SWCH in students for the classes, but 𝐻𝐼𝐴 didn't see any reason why that would happen. His doubts were dispelled when the door opened and Izuku walked in. Iida instantly walked over, introducing himself while also apologizing to him for how he had talked to him before. Uraraka soon appeared behind them and greeted Izuku. 𝐻𝐼𝐴 stood up, knowing what was coming up because he had been told about the first day with Aizawa from the others in his own world. And just as he had guessed, Aizawa appeared behind Uraraka, on the floor and in a sleeping bag. After getting them to be quiet, he gave them gym clothes, telling them to get dressed and meet him out on the grounds. They quickly went to the locker rooms and got changed. Most of the guys were surprised when they saw 𝐻𝐼𝐴 and Izuku, both of their bodies being muscular. Though 𝐻𝐼𝐴 was surprised that he was slightly more muscular, and even a bit taller than Izuku. After getting dressed, they all went to the grounds where they found Aizawa waiting. He told them that they would do the average gym tests, but they would be allowed to use their quirks. He threw a ball to 𝐻𝐼𝐴, saying it was because he had the highest ranking in the class, confirming Bakugo's suspicions. Aizawa had him stand in a circle, telling him he could do anything as long as he didn't leave the circle. 𝐻𝐼𝐴 thought about it for a bit before smiling. He began by setting the ball on fire, but he knew it would be easy for it to go out, so he also tossed it into the air and caught it with a hand of fire. He shot them both, moving them as far as he could while still keeping good control of it before giving it one final blast. In the end it went 1,484. 6 meters, shocking everyone. Most of the class began saying how awesome it was that they could use their quirks and how amazing the hero course was. Which was when Aizawa said the person in last place would be expelled, shutting everyone up. After that, they did the test. Instead of staring with the ball throw, they did the 50-meter dash. 𝐻𝐼𝐴 was able to come in first, though he barely did better than Iida. Then there was the grip strength, and he did pretty decent but first went to Shoji. Then 𝐻𝐼𝐴 got first in the standing long jump since he could fly, and then again in sidestep pin using both his quirk and his physical abilities. Uraraka did the best in the ball throw since she could erase gravity, but 𝐻𝐼𝐴 didn't care. What did catch his attention was Izuku, who didn't have complete control of OFA. 𝐻𝐼𝐴 was surprised to see that he could only use full power, which his body couldn't handle yet. In the end, 𝐻𝐼𝐴 hardly paid the other events any attention, still thinking about the other 𝐴's lack of control over the quirk. In the end, Aizawa told them he was lying about expelling the person in last right before putting up the results. 𝐻𝐼𝐴 ended up in first, and he noticed how Izuku had come in last. Ah, so that explains it, 𝐻𝐼𝐴 thought. Yeah, I could tell that Aizawa had been serious about expelling the person in last. You did too. But it seems that Aizawa thinks Izuku has some potential or something. Seems kinda unfair how this version of you just keeps having things go their way. 𝐻𝐼𝐴 ignored the last comment. He watched as Izuku walked towards Recovery Girl's office. He began walking back to the classroom, getting stopped by Bakugo, who put his hand on his shoulder. Hey you got the highest score in the entrance exams, right? 𝐻𝐼𝐴 sighed, not wanting to have to put up with Bakugo's CRP. He turned around and looked him in the eye. Yeah. What about it? Well, I'm sure you think that makes you better than me. But I'm here to tell you that I'm the best here. You only were able to get first because of that other point system that they didn't even mention. Which means I'm stronger than you. As Bakugo talked, he began activating his quirk slightly, making smoke come out from his hand. Izuku glanced at the hand before looking back at Bakugo. He decided that acting nice with him would only make him think he could walk all over him. He used his quirk to weaken Bakugo's even further. He then began to slightly emit a dangerous aura, and looked Bakugo in the eye while speaking. Look here, buddy, I'm not going to just sit back and let you walk all over me. Now most of the time I can be a pretty laid-back guy. But don't mistake that kindness for weakness. He then got rid of the aura, changing back to normal while flashing a big smile and knocking Bakugo's hand off of his shoulder. So back off, your talk doesn't mean SHT prove your strength with actions, however, if you try to attack to do so then you better be prepared to fight a devil. 𝐻𝐼𝐴 walked off, enjoying Bakugo's shocked expression. The rest of the class watched impressed. From what that had seen so far of 𝐻𝐼𝐴, he had been pretty laid back. so they weren't expecting him to handle Bakugo so easily. But they hadn't noticed Izuku's aura, but Bakugo obviously did. And he had to admit, there was something about him that scared him slightly. He couldn't really explain it, but in that moment his senses were telling him that boy was dangerous. Izuku walked out of the school building and noticed Izuku, 𝗬𝗓𝗏, and Ida. He walked over just in time to hear Izuku explain to the other two what Bakugo had meant when he called him Deku. "Oh gotcha, sorry," 𝗬𝗓𝗏 said. "Though to me, Deku sounds more like you can do it. I kinda like it. Deku's fine." "Wow, you really changed your mind pretty quickly," Izuku said. "Though I have to say, I've never heard it put that way." "Oh, you're that guy that got first place," 𝗬𝗓𝗏 said. "Wait, does this mean you've heard that name before?" Izuku asked. "Oh, 𝗧𝗜𝗧𝗟𝗘." Izuku cursed himself for making slipping up. "I knew a guy who also ended up getting called that. He was kinda looked down on and seen as weak. And in the end he allowed the way his peers treat him to twist him, becoming a much worse person than them. But it seems you were able to meet 3 great friends." Izuku extended his hand, and Izuku shook it with a big smile on his face. "The name's Izuku Michiya. And I'm Izuku Midoriya." The 4 of them began chatting as they all headed to the station. Once there, Izuku split away from them, running home. When he got there, he noticed that everyone was gone except for 𝗀𝗏. He remembered that 𝗧𝗏 was going to be working late, and that the girls had decided to go visit Sayuri. He put his bag in his and 𝗀𝗏's room before sitting next to him on the couch and watching TV, not saying a word. It went like this until the girls and 𝗧𝗏 showed up about 2 hours later and Izuku had to get up to make dinner. After eating, Izuku went to sleep. The next day, Izuku did his usual morning routine, grabbed breakfast made by AI this time, and hurried off to school. Most of the class, including Izuku who already knew this stuff, was bored and waiting for the second half of the school day. He sat behind Izuku, in the spot where Minato would have been. They then went to lunch which was made by the cook hero Lunch Rush. He sat with Izuku, 𝗬𝗓𝗏, and Ida. Izuku was glad, but not surprised, that it seemed like no one was even close to figuring out he and Izuku were the same person. Not even Izuku himself. Both the difference in appearance and personality was enough to ensure that. Then came the second half of the day, and the lesson everyone was looking forward to the most. Hero Basic Training. All Might appeared, and though it wasn't anything normal, especially with his loud voice announcing himself, he announced that he was there and that he was coming through the door like a normal person. Hero Basic Training is the class that will put you through all sorts of training to mold you into heroes, All Might declared. No time to dally about. Today's activity is battle training. All Might pulled out a small device with a button and pressed it. Openings appeared in the wall at the front of the classroom, and cases slowly came out of them. And for that you will need these costumes based on your quirk registry and design specifications that you sent in. After you get changed, come out to ground beta. They all quickly grabbed their costumes before heading to the locker rooms to get dressed. They then made their way to ground beta, a couple of them excited to show off their costumes. Izuku ended up being the first one there, and many of his classmates were impressed when they saw his costume. Its color scheme and design were both fiery to say the least. He had a full-body suit, all of it made fire-resistant to avoid having his quirk damage himself or the suit. He had a full-face helmet with a visor that also had night vision and zoom vision if necessary. His gauntlets were different from his other costume. Instead of having a gadget, it was made to work closely with his quirk. He had areas on his wrist and forearm where fire could be shot out from when he used his quirk to power up his punches. He also had something similar on his armored boots. The boots also had areas on the bottom for his flames, designed to make his flight easier and more stable while also decreasing the amount of power to do so. The armored chest plate was still there, and so was his utility belt, but burn ointment and other medical supplies had been added. Some shoulder and upper arm protection had been added. And then he decided to include a sword for when fire or his quirk was rendered ineffective. The color scheme had been changed from black with some red to red, orange, and a bit of black. It had also been heavily decorated and dramatized to match his quirk, which Izuku thought was a bit much, but it did fit the personality he used for Izuku and he knew it definitely wouldn't be like whatever Izuku ended up using. 𝐻𝐮𝐦𝐬𝐚 looked around, looking at everyone's costumes, remembering how they would end up changing. Then the person he was waiting for appeared, and 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐚 looked curious about what kind of costume the other him would have. And he had to admit he felt slightly uncomfortable and uneasy looking at it. It looked completely homemade, but to him the worst part was how much. The costume itself seemed to idolize All Might. His thoughts were interrupted by the hero himself as he appeared. All Might hesitated for a moment and had to keep himself from laughing when he saw Izuku's costume, but then he began explaining what they would be doing. He told them that while most hero-villain battles were seen outdoors, they actually happened indoors the most. He then told them that they would be having 2-on-2 indoor battles. He was instantly hit by a bombardment of questions. After getting them to quiet down, All Might took out a little cheat sheet and began explaining the details of the battle, like the scenario and victory conditions. He then took out a small box and declared they would be deciding teams by drawing lots. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐚 ended up being on the same team as 𝐻𝐼ROZU. After that, the first battle started with Izuku and Uraraka as heroes going up against Bakugo and Iida as villains. 𝐻𝐼ROZU couldn't help but chuckle to himself as he thought about it. Everyone except for the 2 participating teams began to leave, but before he did, 𝐻𝐼ROZU walked up to Izuku really quick. "Hey man, good luck," he told him. Then he lowered his voice. "A bit of advice from one friend to another, try avoiding a fight or you'll really hurt yourself. Consider everything when making a plan, including your partner's quirk." After that, 𝐻𝐼ROZU left and caught up to everyone else as they made their way to an observation room. "Hey, what did you say to him?" 𝐻𝐼ROZU asked. "Oh, I just wished him some luck. And told him to try not to break any bones this time. But I don't think that's going to work out. From what I can tell, Bakugo is going to leave Iida and head straight for Izuku. Izuku should realize that too, but the question is how will he choose to handle it?" The battle started, and it seems like Izuku chose to take 𝐻𝐼ROZU's advice. At first he planned to hold Bakugo off while Uraraka made her way to the bomb, but then he remembered what 𝐻𝐼ROZU had told him. He asked Uraraka to erasure their weight and they both jumped up to the roof. From there they made their way inside through a door and took a set of stairs down. Just as both Izuku and 𝐻𝐼ROZU had guessed, Bakugo had gone to the lower floors to find Izuku. And they could hear him raging downstairs and setting off explosions as he looked for him. The pair looked around, trying to find the room where Iida was, and they found him moving things around. They guessed he was trying to limit the amount of things that Uraraka would be able to use with her quirk. When he turned his back to them, they quickly ran inside and Uraraka erased his weight and floated him into the air as Izuku made his way to the bomb. All Might turned on the speakers inside, announcing their victory, and as soon as he did, 𝐻𝐼ROZU ran to the building where the battle was supposed to be taking place. When he did, he found Bakugo ready to attack Izuku in a fit of rage as he yelled insults at him. 𝐻𝐼ROZU used his quirks and weakened Bakugo's explosions as he stepped in between them. "You 𝐵𝐵𝐴𝐻𝐵, get out of my way. I'm going to murder that Deku. Back down before I take you down. I won't need my quirk to do it," 𝐻𝐼ROZU told him as he reached for the hilt of his sword. It was the same as his other one, so it was also electrified and could stun or knock out opponents. Bakugo snarled and was about to attack, but before he could, All Might's voice appeared through the speakers again and told Bakugo to stop. Reluctantly, Bakugo walked off, and everyone exited after him. When they were all in the observation room, All Might went over the fight. He declared Izuku as the MVP, and pointed out key points in the match like his strategy and accounting for Bakugo's movements. 𝐻𝐼ROZU added a few more comments that were put even better than what All Might would have been able to do. After that they went on to the next battle. Todoroki and Shoji versus 𝐻𝐼ROZU and 𝐻𝐼ROZU. 𝐻𝐼ROZU had his helmet off while watching the fights and All Might had talked about the results of the last match. But now he had to put it on, hoping no one noticed Deku's grin that had begun to spread on his face. A grin of a battle maniac ready for some carnage. 𝐻𝐼ROZU tried to tune him out, but the prospect of battling someone always seemed to get Deku excitable. Though 𝐻𝐼ROZU had to admit there was a small upside to it in the form of Deku's battle sense. 𝐻𝐼ROZU and 𝐻𝐼ROZU were the villain team, which Deku found to be hilarious, and 𝐻𝐼ROZU had to admit it was a bit comedic. So 𝐻𝐼ROZU started as they walked to the building. "From what I can tell, you're able to create things from your body. I'm guessing you have to know its structure and it can't be living, right? Yes, you're correct. I use the lipids in my body as the material. And you have some kind of fire quirk, but I don't know its full capabilities or limits. My is a bit straightforward, but extremely effective and powerful. I can create fire, but that's not it. I can also control it as well as any fire and manipulate any way I want. I can even lower and raise the temperature, but there's obviously a limit to that. For example, small fires can only get so hot, while very large ones can only be cooled so far since there's either so much or so little. My body isn't resistant either, but my suit takes care of that. Now, as for Todoroki and Shoji, well, I obviously don't know the full extent of their powers, but I have a good guess. Shoji will try to locate us, and 𝐬𝐬 was interrupted by All Might as he declared that the battle was starting. He and Yaoyorozu had made it to the room while they were still talking, and the prep time had passed. 𝐬𝐬 quickly jumped forward and grabbed Yaoyorozu and carried her bridal style before flying off the ground slightly. Hurry up, press your body closer. I can't afford to lower the heat too much, so I'll do my best to shield you. As soon as he said that, a wall of flames appeared around them and formed a bubble. What are you doing? Before 𝐬𝐬 could answer, a sound could be heard throughout the whole building. Once the sound died down, 𝐬𝐬 got rid of the flames around them and lowered the two of them to the floor. All around the room, ice covered everything except for a small circle where 𝐬𝐬 and Yaoyorozu had been. I saw that Todoroki had as ice quirk, so I thought he might try something like this. Now you stay here and try to barricade the room while doing something to prevent yourself from being frozen. I'm going to hold them off so I would feel bad for leaving you behind and you ended up frozen. 𝐬𝐬 quickly melted the ice covering the door and left the room, silently moving down the stairs. Meanwhile, Yaoyorozu watched as the door closed, slightly embarrassed by what he said. She quickly made iron bars and fitted them in the doorway, creating a barrier as 𝐬𝐬 had said. As she did, she thought about 𝐬𝐬, impressed by how easily he was able to grasp people's quirks and how he was able to guess how the other team would fight. 𝐬𝐬 made his way down 2 floors before quickly hiding near the staircase. He made sure to pass by it when he did, so when Todoroki would turn and take the direction that would take him further up, he would be turning his back to him. Todoroki came up, but he seemed prepared for an attack, knowing that 𝐬𝐬 would easily be able to free himself from the ice. Noticing this, 𝐬𝐬 made flames from around the corner at the other end of the hall and had them come around and at Todoroki. Todoroki quickly made a small wall that blocked the attack, and then looked around, expecting 𝐬𝐬 or another attack to come from there. 𝐬𝐬 took advantage of this and ran up from behind him. Todoroki heard his footsteps and quickly began turning around, preparing to launch another ice attack. Before he could, 𝐬𝐬 grabbed his head, and using his gauntlets to gather and focus fire to speed up the attack, 𝐬𝐬 slammed his head into the wall of ice. 𝐬𝐬 then turned around and threw Todoroki to the ground. 𝐬𝐬 gathered flames and blasted them, but right before Todoroki was hit, Shoji appeared from the staircase, grabbing and pulling him in with him and away from the fire. 𝐬𝐬 shot another blast, but Todoroki sealed the stairway with ice. 𝐬𝐬 reached up to his head, a small headache starting to appear. "Come on, you need my help," Deku whispered. "Let me at him, come on, come on, come on. I'm itching for a fight. I won't give you control. This is my fight and my body." 𝐬𝐬 put his hand down and looked up just in time to see ice spreading quickly on the ground. He raised his hand and a large amount of fire poured out, stopping the attack and breaking down the wall. He walked over, seeing that Todoroki and Shoji had been knocked down in the attack. Todoroki didn't bother getting up before launching another wave of ice at him, but 𝐬𝐬 melted it with a wave of his hand. Shoki stepped in, and using his multiple arms he performed a barrage of punches, each great force. 𝐬𝐬 dodged and weaved past each one, and once he got in close he drew his sword and turned it on while stepping past Shoji. The large multi-limbed student grunted in pain as the sword was drawn along his side, electricity stinging him. He swung his arms backwards, trying to hit 𝐬𝐬, but he ducked and jabbed the sword into his unprotected side. Todoroki tried to attack again, but 𝐬𝐬 was prepared. He kicked Shoji behind the knee, forcing him down onto it as he grabbed his shirt and pulled him in the way of the attack. Shoji's large body blocked the attack, while also freezing him in place. 𝐻𝐵 quickly jumped over him, blasting fire with his left hand while preparing to swing with his right. Todoroki jumped out of the way of the fire and away from the sword, but mid-swing, 𝐻𝐵 let go of the sword and it went flying point first at Todoroki. Todoroki looked away for a second as he dodged it, and in that moment 𝐻𝐵 got in close and used an arm triangle chokehold, uses his leg to sweep Todoroki's feet out from under him and held him down like that. Todoroki struggled and tried to use his ice, but 𝐻𝐵's grip was too tight and he refused to let go and used his fire to stop any ice attacks. 𝐻𝐵's arm was pressed against Todoroki's throat, blocking off his airway. After watching Todoroki struggle for a few seconds, All Might decided to end the fight and announce the villain team's victory. 𝐻𝐵 let Todoroki go, and as he was coughing, 𝐻𝐵 used his quirk to free Shoji from the ice and warm him back up. Yaoyorozu came down during this, and looked around curiously. 𝐻𝐵 just told her not to worry about it, and after grabbing his sword, he began walking down the stairs. She then looked to the other two for answers. Todoroki didn't say anything and Shoji simply said that they got their butts kicked and that 𝐻𝐵 was a better fighter than he looked. As soon as 𝐻𝐵 walked into the observation room, he was suddenly bombarded by questions and praise from most of his classmates, which made Yaoyorozu even more curious. "That was just so manly," Kirishima yelled. "That was some nice dodging back there," Mina told him. "Hey there, my name is Asuitsuyu, but you can call me Tsu. You did really good back there." "Hey, I didn't know you were such a good fighter," Izuku exclaimed. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" Eventually All Might was able to get the class back under control. 𝐻𝐵 was made the MVP, for the obvious reason of him beating his two opponents single-handedly and being able to guess Todoroki's opening move. After that, he pointed out key points and once again was outdone by Yaoyorozu. Things repeated like that until the battle was over. In the end, everyone was still excited about 𝐻𝐵's fight and wanted to keep asking questions, but he was able to slip away and go home. 𝐻𝐵 was glad that he was able to get along with the rest of his class, but there was something that was bothering him. It felt like Deku was starting to get more vocal and make more appearances. And it felt as if he got stronger whenever 𝐻𝐵 used his quirk, and kept doing so as the fight went on. 𝐻𝐵 was worried that Deku might start to take control again. And that was something he never wanted to let happen. "Hey Ting, can I ask you for some help with something?" 𝐻𝐵 asked. They were currently up on a rooftop, keeping an eye out for any crimes. He had school the next day, but 𝐻𝐵 couldn't bring himself to just stop vigilante business, especially when he could use the help of others like right now. "Well, it depends. What exactly are you trying to drag me into? I know I've already made this clear before, but I don't have all my memories. At least not of what happened from when arrived to now and a year into the future. But I do remember some things. Vigilantes are people who take the law into their own hands, choosing the lesser of two heroes and helping others. So can I ask for your help with keeping some people safe? You're talking about that class of yours, aren't you? And why exactly should we help them? They're getting trained to handle villains and have pro heroes with them. You might as well as ask us to turn ourselves in. I'm not asking for much. Soon, if things go the same way as they did in my world, my class will go to do some rescue training. While the League of Villains will make an appearance and attack. But I'm not sure how things will turn out. I had convinced them to retreat when things started to look bad and your brother was there kicking butt. But this time, they might fight longer and more desperately. And unlike me at the time, those villains won't have a problem doing horrible things to the students. Just one or two people, and if you want then just step in if things start to look bad. Why don't you just tell UA? You guys may have been understanding, but it helps that some of you have seen some dark times. I wasn't the only one who had done bad things in the past but want to help people now. But the heroes and authorities will either try and lock me up, or if they do agree to work with me, they'll keep me under such strict watch. And they'll probably keep me in some safe house until they need me. Besides, there are more things that I need to do. I don't remember them all, but I know there are more things that I can prevent. Taigen looked at 𝐻𝐵 and saw how serious he was. Well, you do make a point. We may not be heroes, but we still feel that it's our responsibility to help people. We would be some pretty cruel BSTRDS if we ignored this. I'm sure Cat can keep an eye on things, and I can use my portals to move myself and others around. I can see if Daichi can come and help. It should be easy for him to hide his identity after all. Yeah, tell him to go with something even more exotic from that zoo. I'm sure those animal buddies of his would be happy to help out. Well, except for those monkeys. They seem to have a grudge against him. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 jokes. 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐬 laughed, all his former tension gone. Their fun was interrupted when they heard shouting and looked down to see a group of 4 guys robbing a corner store. Sighing, 𝐒𝐮𝐬 looked over to 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. Hey, send me in and let me handle this alone. Deku got excited today, so I need to relieve his battle lust or I won't be able to sleep with all his whining about wanting to fight people. So that's why you were so eager to come out today. Well, have fun. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 opened a portal and 𝐒𝐮𝐬 jumped through, appearing inside the store. The thugs looked at him, and 𝐒𝐮𝐬 had to admit he didn't look completely normal. He wore a hoodie similar to 𝐴𝐻𝐼𝐿 with the hood up, sweatpants, fingerless gloves, and a face mask. But AI had seen fit to draw a small smile on it before he left. So here he was, a teen eager, looking ready to go to some wrestling match, and a childish-looking face mask. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 had his chain wrapped around his right hand under the sleeve, and he reached in and pulled it out. One thug swung his fist, but 𝐒𝐮𝐬 stepped to the side and stuck out his foot, tripping the large man. He began to get up, but 𝐒𝐮𝐬 just swung his chain down, using just enough force to knock him out. He then looked over at the other 3. Sorry guys, but I'm kinda stressed out. So I might be a little rougher than usual. 5 minutes later he walked out of the building eating a popsicle and a bag in his other hand. A portal appeared in front of him and he stepped through, coming out on the building from earlier. Sorry I took so long. They were pretty easy, but it took a while to grab some snacks. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐽 laughed as he imagined the look on the cashier's face after watching 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬 beat up those guys before buying some snacks and walking out as if nothing happened. A minute later they left the area as police cars began pulling up in front of the store. That cashier was going to have quite the story to tell the officers. The next day, 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬 was walking to school, barely paying attention. After that corner store he ended up in 5 more fights and didn't get to sleep until 2. He looked up when a group of people ran to him and began asking questions. He saw that they were all reporters wanting to know about All Might teaching at UA. But he didn't really pay attention to their questions. He sighed before using his quirk to fly away from them and over the wall to UA. He made his way to class, and barely paid attention to the lessons. Before lunch Aizawa announced they would decide on class president and vice president. Iida had them do lots, but 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬 really didn't care and just put Iida because he had been the president in his world. But when the results came in, 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬 had 4 votes and Yaoyorozu was the vice president with 2 votes. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬 went up to the front with Yaoyorozu and Aizawa gave one last announcement about their positions before dismissing them to lunch. During lunch he learned that Iida, Uraraka, Izuku, and Todoroki had voted for him. After that, they began talking and that was when Iida told them that he was related to the 𝗀𝗛𝐻𝐼𝐿, but 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬 already knew about that. Their conversation was interrupted by a loud alarm and everyone began panicking while evacuating the building. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬 and the others ended up getting swept up and separated, but when 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬 looked out he saw that it was only reporters that had set the alarm off. Realizing that everyone was panicking over nothing, 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬 managed to jump up and used his quirk to fly up and get everyone's attention. Oi, calm down already. It's just a bunch of reporters, so calm down. We are students of UA, so act like it. There is no reason to panic. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬 turned his quirk off and dropped into the crowd, muttering to himself about not being able to eat in peace. But as he walked through the crowd he looked out the window and he stopped. He now noticed how the reporters had gotten in. The front gate had been destroyed, the only thing left was a pile of dust. Deku began laughing hysterically. Looks like the handyman is getting ready to make his move. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬 scowled before continuing back down the hall. Now he knew for sure. Shigaraki was going to make his move, and the target was going to be the USJ. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬 hardly paid any attention the rest of the day, thinking about Shigaraki and the USJ. When he got back home he stood in between Tingai, Maria, AI, and the TV. We need to talk. It's about Shigaraki. Alright, Well, can you move aside so we can watch TV while you tell us? Maria asked. Izaya sighed and sat down before explaining. All right, so today Shigaraki made an appearance at UA. I'm sorry, what? 𝐻𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 asked. I didn't see him, but he obviously showed up. He used his quirk to destroy the front gate, letting a bunch of reporters. I'm sure he used this as a distraction. This must be how he figured out about the USJ trip in my world. Alright, so now we know for sure that they're going to make their move. The only question is, how are we going to do this? AI said. Actually we've already discussed this, 𝐻𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 said. Cat can help keep an eye on things, and if things start to get dicey then me and Daichi will step in. He's already agreed to help. And what, you expect us to just go to school while you guys do this? Yeah. Oh hell no, Maria said. Though she was still watching TV, so it was hard if she was talking about the conversation or about what was happening on the show. Look, we can help. Hey, about how many are going to be there? Izaya shrugged his shoulders at 𝐻𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. Well, plenty and many. The students will end up spread out around 8 areas. There's the Flood Zone, Rockslide Zone, Squall Zone, Burning City, Destroyed and Crumbling City, Mountain Zone. Probably some more. AI looked at Taijen with a disappointed look on her face. And you thought 2 more people could handle all that? Back off. According to him, they were able to do well in his world. The only serious injuries were to Eraserhead, 13, and the 2 students he fought were a little banged up. Kinda more than just a little, Izaya muttered. Whatever, the point is, we're just there in case things start to go wrong. But things should be pretty okay. Especially once the other heroes show up. We don't need that many people. It would only give them more chances to catch one of us. AI looked him sadly before going to her room. Maria sighed and turned off the TV. You're a dumbass and a JRK. I at least agree to the first comment, Izaya said. What, why? Maria shook her head and also left. Man, I already knew you were kinda dense about this kind of thing from my world, but looking at this I'm surprised that you haven't realized anything yet, Izaya told him. Taijen looked at him sadly. It's probably because you told us that in a year SHT is going to hit the fan. She must be worried. Dude, don't tell me. Contrary to popular belief, I'm not a dumbass. I know she at least has some feelings for me. But this is for her own good. She deserves better than me. No one deserves to end up with me, it would be too much of a punishment. I'm guessing this has to do with your past. Being a vigilante is one thing. We break the law, but we do it to help people. But I've killed people, and it still haunts me to this day. According to you, it will keep haunting me. I'm a sad, broken man who only puts up an act. I'm not really some great smiling happy person who's all laughs. I just try not to make people not worry about me. Izaya walked over to him and placed a hand on his shoulder. Hey man, cheer up. And you should try and give it a chance. You aren't as bad as you think you are. You want to help people and make up for the things you did. Even though you didn't have a choice but to do it. Maybe she's just what you need to get over this pain you're going through. Izaya walked off, leaving Taijen alone with his thoughts. You have to let someone in eventually. You think that by doing so you'll end up hurting her, but that's exactly what you're doing by pushing her away. As if you're one to talk. Izaya looked back to Taijen. Yeah, well, my crimes are much worse and I had a choice. Besides, the monster is still in my head, so it really isn't safe. Izaya sat in class, feeling slightly uneasy. Though he didn't allow it to show. On the outside he kept up his cover, pretending to be the same loud, friendly Izaya. Though he noticed that it seemed to bother Aizawa, even more so than usual. He also noticed that he would sometimes steal glances at his goggles, though Izaya couldn't figure out why. It wasn't like there were rules against him wearing them. He was snapped out of his thoughts when Aizawa announced their hero training for today. Alright, so for today's training you will be supervised by me, All Might, and one other. So what are we doing exactly? 𝐬𝐮𝐴 asked. Preparing you for disaster relief from fires to floods. Rescue training. Everyone started talking excitedly, which annoyed Aizawa. Hey, I'm not done. Everyone shut up instantly. It's up to each of you whether or not you want to wear your costumes or not. As some of them are ill-suited for this training. The training site is a bit remote, so we'll be going by bus. That's all. Get ready. After everyone got dressed in either their costumes or gym clothes, they all headed out to the bus. 𝐬𝐬𝐴 directed them all on since he was the class president and then got on after them. As the bus took them to the USJ, everyone began talking among themselves. 𝐬𝐬𝐴 was sitting next to Izuku, and he had chosen to wear his suit, though he left his sword behind. "Hey Midoriya," Tsu said. "I generally speak what's on my mind." "Oh, what is it, Azui?" "Call me Tsu. Your quirk resembles All Might's." Izuku suddenly got nervous and started stuttering. Really? Nah, I mean Hold up Tsu, he hurts himself when he uses his power," Kirishima said. "That strength is where the likeness ends. Though I'm kinda jealous of that kind of simple strength enhancer type quirk. There's a lot you can do with one and it's flashy too. My hardening is great for fights but it isn't very flashy." "Well, I think your quirk is great," 𝐬𝐴 said. "Definitely a quirk that would be useful to a pro hero." "Pros, huh? But you know, heroics have a lot about it that's more like a popularity contest," Aoyama told them. "My naval laser is both flashy and powerful enough for the pro level." "As long as you don't blow your stomach up," Mina told him. Aoyama looked at her out of the corner of his eye with an annoyed look. "If we're talking flashy and powerful, then it would have to be Bakugo, Todoroki, or Michiya." "Bakugo's always fuming though," Tsu argued. "He won't become very popular." "The F did you just say to me?" "Say that to my face, you beach." "See. Yeah, I have to agree with her," 𝐬𝐴 said. "I've seen villains with more sympathy and kindness than him. But it won't really matter. The sad truth is that people only respect power. I mean, look at our number 2 hero Endeavor. He may resolve more crimes and stuff, but he might be even worse than Bakugo. And that's saying something. The only thing they'll be able to find when I'm done is AFBLD stain." "Oh, thanks for proving our point again, buddy." "What a vulgar conversation," Yaoyorozu said to herself. "Yeah, but it's funny," Uraraka said. "You're right, Yaoyorozu. Vulgar is the perfect word to describe Bakugo." Bakugo was probably going to spew out more threats at 𝐬𝐴, but Aizawa spoke up before he could. "We're almost there, settle down." The bus pulled up a large building and they all got off. Once they were inside, most of them stared in amazement around. All around the inside of this large building there were many different areas. "This is a practical training area that I created," 13 said as he walked up. "To simulate all kinds of accidents and disasters for your training. Its name is the Unforeseen Simulation Joint." "Hey 13, where's All Might?" Aizawa asked. "He should be here around this time. From what I've heard, it seems like he was out 𝐻𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨 on his commute today." 13 held up 3 fingers. "He's resting up in the teacher's lounge. That guy is the height of irrationality. Well, shall we?" "Before we start, I would like to say a few things. I'm certain all of you are Gaia aware, but my quirk is called Black Hole. No matter the material may get Sesake into the vortex I create, it will get turned to dust. Yeah, it's perfect for clearing rubble and saving people who have been trapped," Izuku said. "But it's also dangerous," 𝐬𝐴 said. "It could easily end someone's life. The same could be said about everyone's quirk." "That's correct. Naturally, in today's society, quirks are strictly regulated. But you should never forget how dangerous quirks are." 𝐬𝐴 looked down to the central pavilion and noticed a small misty black dot that was steadily growing smaller. Aizawa noticed that he wasn't paying attention and looked in the same direction just as Shigaraki appeared. "Huddle up and don't move," he shouted to the students. 13, protect the students." "What the heck's that?" Kirishima asked. "More battle robots like the entrance exam." "Don't move. Those are villains." "What, villains? You can't be serious. What kind of villains would be dumb enough to attack a school for heroes?" Kaminari asked. Yaoyorozu turned to, "Sensei, aren't there intruder sensors? Why aren't any alarms going off?" "Of course there are sensors. Are they only here or are they also at the main building?" Todoroki muttered. "Either way, if the sensors aren't working then that must mean one of them is interfering. This place is far from campus and they picked a time when a class is here. Maybe they aren't as dumb as they seem. They must have an objective because this is a well-coordinated sneak attack." 13. Begin the evacuation, Izuku said as he ran towards the villains. Try calling the school. One of them must be jamming the sensors. There must be an electric-type quirk that is interfering, so you try 𝗂𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. Got it? Izuku began fighting the villains, erasing their quirks as well as using his capture scarf and martial arts skills to beat them. Slowly the villains began dropping, none of them being able to land a blow. Meanwhile, 13 began evacuating the students. But they had barely begun to move when 𝗂𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 appeared in front of them. Sorry, but I cannot allow you to pass. Greetings, we are the League of Villains. Forgive our audacity, but today we have come to this prestigious school of UA to end the life of All Might. The plans we got yesterday said he would be here, but it seems his schedule has been changed. But either way, my role remains the same. Prepared to use his quirk to attack, but before he could, Kirishima and Bakugo rushed in to attack the villain. They both used their quirks and attacked with a punch before jumping back, watching his movements. But when the smoke cleared from Bakugo's explosion, 𝗂𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 appeared unharmed. No, 13 yelled. Get back both of you, that won't work. You may be students, but you're still the best of the best. Now then, begone. Suddenly the smoke from 𝗂𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫's body expanded and enveloped most of the students, teleporting them away. However, almost half the students were able to avoid this. And one of them was. Hey bartender, how about making us some drinks? Izuku shouted as he appeared behind 𝗂𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. The villain began to turn around and use his quirk again, but before he could, Izuku grabbed him by his physical body that was protected by armor and slammed him into the ground. I prefer my drinks shaken and not stirred. 𝗂𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 started to move, but Izuku ignited his hand and stared 𝗂𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 in the eye threateningly. Don't try anything. I don't really want to hurt you. Izuku reached up to his helmet and tried to activate his comm and reach the others, but all he got was static. Looks like your vigilante friends won't be getting a call for help, Deku laughed. So what now, you still going to pretend to be some hero corps student, or will you show your true colors? Izuku felt a sharp pain in his head and placed his free hand to the side of it. Noticing how he was distracted, 𝗂𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 quickly teleported himself away, bringing Izuku with him. Izuku fell to the ground, and when he looked around he found himself in the central pavilion with the other villains. He looked up, seeing 𝗂𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 as he teleported back to the other students. He quickly looked around and saw a villain charging right at him. Some easy prey. Izuku ignited his feet and quickly moved out of the way before delivering a boosted punch. Izuku then looked at the other villains, and he could feel Deku getting excited. But he didn't have time for that. He activated his quirk and flew away, heading straight for the area where Yaoyorozu, Jiro, and Kaminari would be. From what he could remember, that was also where the person jamming communications and the alarms was located. He flew, quickly covering the distance, and he soon found where the three students were fighting villains. As he approached, he saw Yaoyorozu and Jiro take cover under a large cloth before Kaminari unleashed his quirk all around. All the villains fell to the ground and Kaminari turned his quirk off, now in his stupid form. Izuku landed and started walking towards them but quickly stopped and turned around. Behind him, Yaoyorozu was coming out from under the cloth and her clothes had been torn. Michiya, what are you doing here? She asked. Explain later, can you please just cover up? Yaoyorozu made a new top and covered herself up while Jiro made sure that Izuku didn't turn around. But as Yaoyorozu finished getting dressed, they heard a frightened "Ve." They looked over and they saw a villain with a skull-like mask holding Kaminari hostage. All right, you three, hands in the air, and no quirks allowed. Try anything and I'll kill him. The villain held up a hand next to Kaminari's head and electric sparks began moving across it. The girls instantly put their hands up, but Izuku looked at Kaminari as he made more unintelligible sounds in fear. Both he and Deku agreed about this situation. Izuku suddenly bursted out laughing, Deku doing the same in his head. Hey you! I said to put your hands in the air. You should try to take hostage more seriously. Izuku reached up and took his helmet off, before wiping away a tear. Yes, sorry, it must be really emasculating to have a kid laugh at you while you're trying to be all serious. But I'm not worried. Why should I be? You're not much of a threat to me. The girls looked at him as if he was crazy. Then 𝐬𝐬𝐴's face got completely serious. Who do you think you are? If you're going to threaten me, then make sure you can not only pull it off, but that I won't be able to come for you afterward. The villain made electricity come from his free hand, which worried the girls, but then it suddenly caught fire. He looked at it in surprise before shaking it in an attempt to put it out while yelling in pain. He looked back up, about to yell at 𝐬𝐴 to stop it before he killed 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨, but when he did, 𝐬𝐴 was already in front of him and winding up for a punch. The villain lost his grip on 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨 as he was knocked back, but that wasn't the end of things. 𝐬𝐴 appeared above him and slammed his foot down in an axe kick, knocking the villain into the ground. 𝐬𝐴 reached down and grabbed the man's head before running forward quickly, dragging the villain's face on the ground as he did, before throwing him into a large rock. The villain fell to the ground, his body having gone limp. Wow, that was amazing, 𝐻𝐼𝐻, Jiro shouted as both her and Yaoyorozu ran forward. I knew you were pretty strong, but that was insane. He never stood a chance. Yes, that was truly quite amazing, Yaoyorozu told him. I'm glad I was able to see your fighting abilities that the others had been talking about. 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨 held up to thumbs while making more sounds, nodding his head as he did so. 𝐬𝐴 shrugged. It wasn't that amazing. I'm sure you guys could have easily handled it if you had some training. And I think it was safe to say he was the one jamming the signal, so if you'll excuse me. 𝐬𝐴 walked over to where he had been and picked his helmet since he had dropped it before attacking. He put it on and turned the comms on. Hey there, we have a situation here at the USJ. Can you please send all the teachers? There are villains and a lot of them. He had called UA, but he knew they weren't the only ones listening. He then turned to the other three. You three get back to the others. And before you say anything, I'm going to help however I can. Before they could argue, 𝐬𝐴 used his quirk and flew away, heading straight for where Aizawa was. Ugh, are we seriously going to do more hero work? Deku complained. Watching you do this all the freaking time is making me sick. Come on, we hate heroes, remember, so why are you helping them? Better yet, why are you pretending to be one? You know that the instant they find out about our past, they'll just lock you up. Yeah, I know, in the end I'm either going to die or get locked up. There's no way that after all this will end in a happy ending. But you know what, I'm still going to help them. Because that's what heroes do. 𝐬𝐴 landed to find a Nomu holding Aizawa by the head. Then Kurogiri appeared next to Shigaraki. They said something to each other and Shigaraki began scratching at his neck furiously. The Shigaraki suddenly turned and ran towards the flood zone, at the edge of which in the water was Izuku and 𝐬𝐶. He reached out towards 𝐬𝐶's face, but then, nothing happened. 𝐬𝐴 turned to see that even heavily injured, Aizawa was still using his quirk to stop Shigaraki. The Nomu slammed Aizawa's face into the ground, but before Shigaraki could try again, Izuku jumped forward and tried to punch the villain. The Nomu appeared in between them, blocking the punch. But 𝐬𝐶 was able to move away and used her quirk to grab Izuku as she jumped away. The Nomu moved to intercept them, but that was when 𝐬𝐴 made his move. He appeared in front of it and launched a solid punch to its face, using his quirk to highly boost his quirk. The Nomu looked down at him, as if he was just an insignificant bug. Huh, stupid brat, Shigaraki scoffed. That classmate of yours with the super strength wasn't able to hurt him with a punch. The Nomu punched at 𝐬𝐴, but he ducked under the arm before jumping up and jabbing 2 fingers into each of its eyes. Yeah, shock absorption or something, right? But that won't protect it from getting burned. 𝐬𝐴 ignited his entire body, making it flare. Up to an intense temperature. Even through his suit, which was made to protect against heat and flames, he could feel the intense heat. But the Nomu was much worse off. It screeched in pain as its head was getting burned from the inside out. It swung an arm, but 𝐬𝐴 dodged this one too. As he looked up, the Nomu was already closing the distance and attacking again. 𝐬𝐴 started dodging the flurry of punches, but he was unable to avoid one. Instead, he was forced to put up his arms to protect his head while also jumping back with his quirk to roll with the punch in an attempt to lessen the amount of damage. But still he was sent flying back, and it felt as if his arms had started to break. He looked up and saw that his vision blurred for a second. This isn't looking too good, 𝐬𝐴 thought. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. I can already feel the effects of pushing my quirk to this extent. You're weak, Izuku. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐵 gasped as he found himself in the middle of a completely white area. Everywhere he looked, there was nothing but white. Then he heard Deku's voice again from behind. He turned around to see himself in this villain outfit. The only thing missing was his mask. He was in a chair, chained both to it as well as to large weights on the ground. Come on, you know you need me. Do it, accept me. Suddenly, the chains binding him to the chair broke, and he blacked out. The 𝗏𝗚 was slowly approached him, when the flames on 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐵 were extinguished. It hesitated for a moment, before suddenly running forward, quickly appearing next to 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐵, swinging a fist. But his attack met with empty air and 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐵 was suddenly behind him. The 𝗏𝗚 spun around and tried to backhand him, but 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐵 ducked under the attack. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐵 grabbed the 𝗏𝗚's arms, and then before it could move they suddenly disappeared from the shoulder down. It backed away from him screeching in pain, but the arms quickly began growing back. The 𝗏𝗚 tried to kick at 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐵, but he sidestepped before destroying the 𝗏𝗚's legs. 𝗀𝐻𝐿 suddenly appeared behind 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐵 and tried to warp him away, but then the costumed hero in training suddenly disappeared and reappeared behind him, slamming him into the ground. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐵 stared down at the mist villain, and he could feel fear begin to grow as he looked up at him. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐵 then grabbed 𝗀𝐻𝐿 and threw him at the 𝗏𝗚 as it began to get back up again. Shigaraki came in from behind and tried to destroy him with his quirk, but 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐵 spun around and grabbed his hand. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐵 then ignited his hand, burning the blue-haired villain. Shigaraki tried to attack with his other hand, but 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐵 caught this one too and kicked him in the stomach. He then kicked Shigaraki's feet out from under him and turned as the 𝗏𝗚 came running at him. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐵 held up his hands and a stream of fire shot out with enough to blast the 𝗏𝗚 backwards and into one of the 𝐬𝐵's disaster zones. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐵 turned around in time to see 𝗀𝐻𝐿 warping both himself and Shigaraki away as the other screamed in rage at 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐵. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐵 began laughing crazily and turned back to look in the direction of 13 and the other students. He started to walk forward, but then stopped and fell to his knees, clutching his head as he screamed out in pain. He bent down and pressed his head to the ground, his body beginning to shake. Flames shot out from his back uncontrollably. He tore his helmet off and looked back up while clutching his head again. He grasped at his hair and tears began to stream down his face. And then he felt his consciousness begin to slip away. The last thing he saw was All Might and the other teachers burst through the entrance to the 𝐬𝐵, and a voice. Looks like you were late again, heroes. Might want to fix that bad habit, or I'll be able to take this body back. And Izuku will end up lost to you forever. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐵 opened his eyes and when he looked around he found himself in Recovery Girl's office at UA. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐵 sat up and rubbed his head, trying to remember what happened. Ah, 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐵, you're awake. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐵 turned and saw that Izuku was laying in the bed next to the one he was in. And standing next to him was All Might in his deflated form. Izuku noticed him looking and seemed to get really nervous. Huh, the kid seems a little nervous. How about you go back to sleep until All Might leaves so he calms down? 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐵 froze. He had gotten used to hearing Deku's voice, but now it was different. Like he was hearing it in his head. He turned his head again and there he was, standing at the foot of his bed. Deku chuckled when he saw his shocked expression. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐵 blinked and he was gone. He started to relax when he heard him next to him this time. Hey there buddy, what's wrong? You seem real tense. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐵 clutched at his chest and he felt his heart begin to beat faster as his breathing also became more labored. He felt a hand grab his shoulder and he whirled around, expecting Deku again. But it was All Might, who had a concerned look on his face and seemed to be saying something. But 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐵 couldn't hear him. I'm sorry, what? Can you repeat that? I asked if you're all right, young man. Yeah, totally, he lied. Why wouldn't I be? Ain't nothing that can keep me down, not even those villains. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐵 began to try and scoot out of the bed, but then Recovery Girl hit him on the head with her cane. Don't you even start with me. Do you realize how worried you were? Both of your arms were fractured, and you pushed your quirk so much that even with that suit of yours you had some burns. And according to your classmates, right after the villains disappeared, you started screaming in pain while clutching your head. Honestly, why is this batch of first years so self-harming? 𝐻𝐮𝐦𝐬𝐚 smiled sheepishly at her while rubbing where he had been hit. Come on, Granny Chio, it wasn't that bad. She raised her cane threateningly, making 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐚 jump off the bed and crouch behind it for cover. Villains were one thing, but this old lady scared him. Hey now, can I ask you to wait to kill him until after I've asked him some questions? Oh goody, Deku said as he appeared next to 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐚 while clapping. It's the good old detective Tsukachi. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐚 nodded his thanks to the detective who smiled at him, before walking over. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐚 sat back on the bed. Tsukachi seemed to whisper something to All Might, who then left afterwards, before turning to him. So then, like I said, I wanted to talk to you about what happened today. What do you mean? I'm sure there isn't much for us to talk about. They talked a big game and managed to get into the USJ without the main campus noticing, but there can't be much for me to say. Aizawa-sensei was badly hurt, but he was able to weaken them enough for a simple student like me to overpower them. Besides, I'm sure the others have already told you what they need to know. Except you aren't exactly a normal student. The small smile that had been on 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐚's face now disappeared, and Deku began laughing in the background, putting 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐚 even more on edge. And what exactly do you mean by that? Well, I was able to get a look at footage from the security cameras and also have heard some things from your classmates. And I've noticed a few things. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐚 glanced and Izuku, who was watching this conversation curiously. Tsukachi noticed this and stood up. Come with me, we can talk somewhere else. They got up and walked out of the nurse's office and walked down a couple of halls. After a short while they arrived at the principal's office and walked in. Nizu was inside, sitting behind his desk, watching the two as they came in. Good to see you, Michiya. I'm glad to see that 𝐶𝐻𝐼O was able to help you to recover. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐚 glanced between the two adults before sitting in an empty chair. So it seems the detective isn't the only one curious about what happened. All right then, go ahead and ask your questions. You seem rather calm about this, Mr. Michiya, Nizu said. Well, I'm not surprised you would have questions. The school was just attacked, and the villains who seemed to be in charge got away. All right then, let's get started, Tsukachi told him as he sat in another chair. First off, most of your classmates were pretty scared and followed Eraserhead and 13th's orders to evacuate. But you seem really calm and collected, as if you weren't caught off guard by their sudden appearance. What are you talking about? I had a mask on. How could you be sure if I was scared or not? You don't think I'm some kind of spy, do you? No, nothing at all. All right then, after getting teleported to the central area where Eraserhead and most of the villains were, you flew off pretty quickly. But not back to the entrance. We know you helped 3 of your classmates, but why did you go there instead of trying to get to safety? And how did you know where they were? I didn't know where they were. You're lying. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐚 gave the detective a curious look, then he remembered his quirk. It allowed him to tell if someone was telling the truth or not. Look, I went there so I could help them. And I took out the villain who was jamming our communications, before calling the school and alerting them of the situation. Yes, you did do that. But how did you know where they were? Looks like you won't be able to keep your past a secret, now does it? Deku whispered. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐚 glanced at the villainous form of him that was leaning next to the door. Tsukachi noticed this and looked in the same direction, but he didn't see anything. Come on, just give me back this body. I'll create a world where no one would question us, where we would rule supreme. Michiya, what exactly are you looking at? Nizu asked. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐚 looked at him, before looking down to the ground, shaking his head. Well, I would like to ask my own question. How exactly did you defeat that large person? From what we saw from the security footage, he seemed extremely tough. Even All Might himself might have struggled a bit against that villain. But then suddenly your flames went out, and you seemed to undergo a small change. You moved like an experienced fighter. You also moved with remarkable speed, able to keep up with all of the villains and not them even touch you. And somehow you also destroyed the large villain's limbs with a single touch. So tell me, how exactly did you do that? 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐚 looked at Nizu, a look of fear and worry beginning to spread on his face. Deku began laughing and started doing a small celebratory dance. My, that sounds familiar. But where have I heard of that before? 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐚 gasped as he felt a sharp pain in his head, grasping it. He then turned and scowled at Deku briefly before looking back down with a grimace. "Michiya, are you all right?" Sesake asked. 𝐬𝐬𝐴 slowly looked up as he felt the pain diminish. "May I look at that footage? Please, I need to see something." The two adults looked at each other with concern, before nodding. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐴 typed something into his computer before turning the screen around. 𝐬𝐬𝐴 looked as the screen showed his fight with the 𝗰𝐽. So far it was exactly as he remembered, his body on fire and having just been hit by the 𝗰𝐽. And then suddenly, the fire went out and he stood up straight. The 𝗰𝐽 ran at him and tried to hit him, but he moved quickly. So fast that it almost looked like he had just disappeared and reappeared behind the villain. It tried to attack again, but he ducked before grabbing both of its arms. Then it looked as if they had imploded. It then tried to attack him using its legs, but he destroyed them the same way. 𝐬𝐬𝐴 felt his breath getting faster and red and looked away from the screen. He didn't remember doing those things. But he knew how he did. Except it shouldn't have been possible. He felt fear begin to spread throughout his body as his thoughts raced. Then the scene in front of him, and he found himself on a sidewalk. He was looking down, a small girl with white hair and a horn clutching onto his leg, a look of fear on her face. Memories came rushing back to 𝐬𝐴 as he found himself back in the principal's office. He felt someone's hand on his shoulder and shook him slightly, and turned to see Sesake with a concerned look on his face. "Hey, calm down, what's wrong?" 𝐬𝐴 calmed down before answering. "Don't worry about it. Now I can't really tell you how I did that stuff. That moment when my flames disappeared, well, I blacked out at that moment. I don't remember doing any of that stuff. But I do, and it was so fun to be in control again. Pity it ended when it did though. I would have liked the chance to rip apart those heroes." 𝐬𝐴 ignored Deku, continuing to talk. "Well, you have a quirk that lets you know if someone is lying." "Yeah, I found them pretty quickly, didn't I? And how did you know?" "I didn't." Sesake frowned. While he wasn't expecting that, his quirk told him that 𝐬𝐴 did in fact not know. "Look, I didn't know where they were going to be. And I blacked out during the fight, and I wasn't in control during that second half of the fight." Sesake sighed, and decided to dismiss 𝐬𝐴, done asking him questions, and turned to 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐴. He was telling the truth. "Well, I'm glad about that. I would hate to think that one of my students was some spy or something. And he did perform as well as any hero, though I guess that does make me curious about something. And that is how he learned to fight like that. Maybe he's just naturally gifted. There are people who just know how to fight well." Well, yes, that is indeed a possibility. But it seemed like he was moving more based on experience than he was on instinct. And what about what happened at the end? As we saw in the footage, he suddenly grabbed his head and started screaming in pain. But Chiyo was unable to find any sign of damage to his head. Yes, I was curious about that as well. He also seemed panicked earlier, which is why I let him go without asking anything about it. But he's hiding something. Also, did you notice? He kept looking away as if he saw someone else in this room. Do you think that he might have some mental disorder or something similar? Maybe. He might have some kind of split personality. Did you hear how he phrased his answers? He said that he didn't know anything, that he wasn't in control during that fight. And it would also explain why he kept looking away. Maybe he was hearing a voice or seeing his other personality. Yes, that is indeed a possibility. I will ask his teachers to keep an eye on him. For now, the only thing we can do for now is wait. Yes, and now about that other matter. Some of your students reported seeing other people fighting villains in the other zones, but we don't have any information on them. Did some of the villains have a falling out of sorts? I don't know, but I don't like this. They might be a completely separate group, but if so, then why did they show up? And how did they know about the attack? I don't know, but I want to ask you to keep me informed about any information about this group. They were able to infiltrate our school just like the League of Villains. I need to know why they were there. I cannot stand by and let them attack my students. Sesake nodded and left, leaving 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐴 to his own thoughts. How interesting, it seems that two mysteries have appeared. A student who may be hiding something from us, and a mysterious group. Now, are they connected, or do they have nothing to do with each other? Man, that is fed up, Tai said. As soon as he got back from Sesake's questions, 𝐻𝐮𝐦𝐬𝐚𝐫𝐲 told the others about what he remembered during the talk. About Eri and the Sesake. Currently everyone was at the home except for Sadao, who was still at work. Well, that explains why you got that idea of yours, Maria agreed. But are you sure about this? This seems pretty risky. It might completely backfire on you as well. But we can't fight them ourselves, AI told her. That would definitely draw attention. And it's not a bad idea. Besides, we have to try. The only other option is to abandon that girl, or try to gather everyone for an attack. Which we might lose badly, and like I said, if we do win, then that will show the authorities that there is an organized group out there capable of taking down that entire gang. Look man, we've told you before. You can do what you can to help people with that knowledge of yours while also trying to get info on that mystery person or group at the end, 𝐻𝐻𝐿 told him. But if we have to, we will cut you off and leave you to your troubles. Well, this is one of those times. If things go badly, then you lose our support. And unlike what AI said, I do think you have 3 options, but they're different from what she said. Abandon the girl, go through with your plan, or do some anonymous tip type of thing and hope things go well. Because I don't think we should really get involved with this. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐚 smiled sadly at him before standing up. I can't leave Eri behind, and a tip won't be enough. I have to do what I can to help get her free as soon as possible. If things go badly, I won't even bother returning. I would hate myself even more if you guys got caught because of me. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐚 turned around and started to walk to his and 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫's room to grab his vigilante clothes. Hold on, are you going to get that dumb hoodie of yours? 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐚 looked back at him confused. Well yeah, I can't really let them see my face. 𝐻𝐻𝐿 gave him his signature mischievous grin. I don't like the idea of taking part, but I still can't have you going in that CRP. It would hardly hide your identity. He opened a portal and an object came flying out and 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐚 caught it. When he saw what it was, his eyes widened. You may have thought of it as a lost cause, but I could hardly let such good stuff go to waste. As you can see, it has not only been restored, but has a few tweaks made to it. Now then, get going. Ah, that brings back memories, Deku said while peeking over 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐚's shoulder. Tsukachi climbed into his car and turned it. He had ended up staying late, working on what had happened at the USJ. He was about to drive off, when he noticed a small letter on the passenger side seat. He opened it up, curious about its contents, who had left it, and how did they get it in there. He read it over, carefully reading each word. It said that it was someone who had found information on an illegal group. They didn't want to come to the station and wanted to remain anonymous. But they were willing to talk to the detective, and had even set up a location for them to meet. He considered the possibility of this being a trap, but something told him that it wasn't. He was also curious about the illegal group that the mystery person had information on. He decided to check it out and drove to the location in the letter. It wasn't far. It was a few streets over, at a small corner store. When he arrived, he realized this was the place that had been attacked by 4 thugs, but then a vigilante had shown up. He didn't have the chance to think about it for long when he heard humming nearby. Following the source, he heard it coming from the roof of the building next to the store. Thinking that it might be the sender of the letter, he looked into the alleyway between the 2 buildings and found a small ladder leading up to the roof. He climbed it and looked around when he got to the top. Sitting by the edge was a person in what looked like a combat suit. Armored chest plate, gauntlets, a utility belt, and armored boots over a sleeveless suit. The person wore a mask that covered their face, but Tsukachi could see long white hair flowing out from behind it. The person seemed to realize he was there and turned to look at him. "Ah, detective, so glad you could make it." The mask distorted the person's voice, making it deeper and created a sound of static as well. Tsukachi started to reach for his gun. "Whoa there, calm down. There's no need to get violent. Didn't you read my letter? I said I wanted to give you some information on a villain organization. And why should I trust you? You may just be a villain yourself who has been sent to kill me." Wow, someone seems to think they're real special. Please just hear me out, I need your help. If you don't, then a little girl will be made to suffer terribly. Tsukachi's eyes narrowed. Is that some kind of threat? No, kinda a promise, but I won't be the one who hurts her. I want to help her. And why should I believe you? And how do you know this? Are you a part of that group? Hell no. It's my quirk. I get these like premonitions. I can't control what I see or when, but I can pretty much see into the future. Those people who were seen at the 𝐬𝐮𝐽, some small-time vigilantes who have a strong sense of justice. I told them there was going to be an attack and enlisted their help. I also know other things. Even things that are supposed to be secret. Like what? All Might's weakness. I'd say that right now, he can only do about 3 hours of hero work a day. The rest of the time he looks like an over-glorified skeleton. 𝐀𝐮𝐽𝐻's eyes widened when he heard this. All Might's secret was, well, secret. Only a few knew about it, and he doubted that this person was one of them. Here's some more information for you. It should help you with the League of Villains. That Nomu creature you took into custody. It's a living weapon created by the League with multiple quirks. In other words, he is still alive. Look, I don't care if you trust me right now, but just ask the Night Eye group to keep an eye on the Sesake. They were able to gather the necessary information on them from what I saw, so they should be able to again. The person reached behind them and brought out a folder with some papers inside, before tossing it to the detective. Here is the information I have on them and the girl. Just check it out, please. I can't do anything myself, but I hope you can help her. Before the detective could say anything, the person set off a small smoke bomb and disappeared. Tsukachi looked down at the file in his hands, sighing before heading back down the ladder. He wasn't sure if he could trust the guy. From what his quirk told him, he had been honest almost the entire time. But one prominent lie was what the person said about their quirk. He got into his car and drove home, deciding to look over the file back at his house. Izaya watched him drive off. When he set off the smoke bomb, he only jumped to the roof of the corner store and hid behind the air duct, but it was enough. He knew Tsukachi would be able to tell his truths and lies apart, but it didn't matter. It would be bad if he completely acted like he knew his quirk. He needed to keep people from connecting his vigilante, villain, and hero student identities. He reached up to his head and touched the fake hair that had been made a part of the mask, smiling. He was glad that 𝐻𝐮𝐽𝐻 had the foresight. His mask only covered his face, so this would help to hide his identity. He was pretty sure that he was being watched at UA, so there was no need to make things worse for him. He turned around and started hoping on the rooftops, making his way back to the house. He was halfway there when he suddenly got a splitting headache and stopped. He grunted and gasped as he recalled more memories. As he did, images flashed in his mind. He was in an alleyway with Iida, Todoroki, and the hero killer Stain. He remembered meeting them and how Iida was there for revenge. Revenge because Stain had injured and paralyzed his older brother from the waist down. He groaned and sat down, thinking about what to do about it. Why do anything? Deku asked as he appeared sitting in front of him. Why should we help that hero? Personally, I think I prefer Stain over you. Well, that's mean. Technically you are just a real fed-up version of me. So how can you say that? Do you hate yourself too? You say I am a twisted and fed-up version of you, but I am a stronger version. That is why I hate you. You are the embodiment of my past weaknesses. Maybe we are actually two halves of a whole. Some like yin-yang type of seer. I wish for peace and justice, wanting to help others. You want destruction and to rule over people as the strongest. You are chaos and I am peace. Don't you dare get philosophical with me. Have fine. Hey, I have a question for you. How did you do it? I thought we lost AFO and the other quirks. I never said anything like that. You reached that conclusion because you couldn't use them. But were they ever really your quirks to begin with? I was the one to inherit AFO and the one to steal those quirks. Pyrokinesis was what you were born with. Dude, we share the same body, so how come I can't use them? You could use pyrokinesis. I had complete control. Beach. Excuse me. Izaya stood up and walked through Deku before heading back to the house again. He thought about what Deku had said, and considering how things seemed to go for him, it wasn't surprising. But he didn't really care. He felt that if his life depended on it, then Deku would help since it was his body too. In which case he would have access to the quirks. The only thing that worried him about that was the possibility of Deku taking control in that moment. UA didn't have school the day after the 𝐬𝐮𝐽𝐻 incident, but the students weren't able to rest easy. The next day at school, 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐴 could tell that the others were nervous, and he was as well. But that was due to Eri and Stain. He was unsure if Tsukachi had actually started to look into the Sesake or asked someone else to, and he also needed to find and stop the hero killer. After everyone took their seats, the door opened and everyone expected to see a substitute teacher, but instead it was Aizawa who was wrapped up like a mummy. "Wow, you're already back, sensei," 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐴 asked. "I am glad to see you're doing all right, sensei," Ida said. "Can you really call that doing well?" Uraraka muttered. "My welfare isn't important. Because your fight is far from over." 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐴 knew what he was about to say, but the others shifted nervously. UA's sports festival is fast approaching. The students began voicing their opinions, most of them worried about doing this right after having been attacked by villains. It's necessary in order to demonstrate UA's crisis management protocols are sound. This will show that we won't let this attack get to us. Compared to past years, there will be much more security. Anyways, the sports festival is the greatest chance for you heroes in training. Our sports festival is one of Japan's biggest events, taking the place of the World Olympics. The nation's top heroes will be there, Yaoyorozu said. They'll be there in order to scout us. They'll be looking to hire sidekicks after we graduate, Kaminari said. That's how it's done. Some of those sidekicks don't ever go beyond that and go solo. That'll be you dunce, Jiru told him. Aizawa regained their attention before continuing. Naturally, you'll gain valuable experience and popularity if you're picked by a big-time hero. But your time is limited. Show the heroes what you're made of and you'll make a future for yourselves. This happens once a year, so you get 3 chances during your stay at UA. If you're hoping to become a hero, then this is an event that you cannot miss. After that, classes began until lunch when they were dismissed. Everyone began talking about the sports festival, all of them excited for the event and the opportunity it would give them. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐴 left with Ida, Izuku, and Uraraka, and on their way to the cafeteria, Izuku asked Uraraka why she wanted to become a hero. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐴 was also curious, because as far as he could remember, Uraraka had never told him. "I want to become a hero for money." "What?" Izuku said, surprised. "You want to be a hero for the money?" "Ultimately, yeah." 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐴 felt annoyed when he heard this. While it wasn't anything like Deku, he still disliked heroes, but it was those who weren't really heroes. And Uraraka was starting to sound like one. "Well, there is nothing wrong with that," Ida told her. "Nothing wrong with wanting to secure a life of comfort for yourself." "Yeah," Izuku said, agreeing with Ida. "It was just kinda surprising. Well, you see, my family owns a construction company. But business has been bad. We're poorer than poor. I had told them that when I grew up I wanted to help them with my quirk, but they told me to fulfill my own dreams. And that when the day comes I could just take them on a vacation or something. So I want to become a great hero, so I can make money and help make my family's life easier." Ida began praising her for her kindness, but he stopped when 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐴 stepped in front of Uraraka with a serious look on his face. Then suddenly he bowed. "I am sorry. What are you apologizing for? You see, when you told us that you wanted to be a hero for money, I thought badly of you. I dislike those who do the job only to satisfy their greed for fame and fortune. But to me, the fact that you don't want the money for yourself, but to help your family is very noble of you. Lift your head, it's okay. You don't have to apologize for anything." "Well, I think it shows how great of a person you are," came a loud voice. The 4 of them turned and saw All Might. "But I expect nothing less from you, young Michiya. It's just the type of person you are. Young Midoriya, I was looking for you. Wanna eat lunch with me?" All Might held up a small lunchbox. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐴 and Uraraka had to suppress laughter when they saw this, the act reminding them of a shy schoolgirl. Izuku left with the hero, and the rest of them continued walking to the cafeteria. As they walked, Deku showed up and walked next to 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐴. "Wow, you were quick to bow your head. You know why? This persona I've created is not something I can just drop. Even you have to agree that it would be bad if people found out if me and Izuku are pretty much the same person. This personality helps to reduce that possibility. That just now was exactly what the person with this type of personality would have done. You have a point. Though you wouldn't need this dumbass identity if you forget this stupid notion of being a hero. Hey, what do you think? 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗟𝗘 said, snapping 𝐬𝐬 out of his thoughts/conversation with Deku. Sorry, what? Why do you think All Might wanted to eat with Deku? Iida thinks it's because Deku has a similar quirk to him or has started to take a shine to him. Well, I don't know. But from what I've seen of Izuku, he sure seems to have the heart of a hero. So if All Might has taken a shine to him, then I doubt it's because of their quirks. Or maybe there was something they needed to talk about. By now they were in the lunch line, and 𝐬𝐬 noticed that Todoroki had glanced at them, as if curious about their conversation. 𝐬𝐬 shrugged it off and turned back to the other two. Afterwards, at the end of the day, everyone got up to leave, but they found a large crowd outside their classroom. They were all students from other classes, and they were peering into the classroom. What are they all here for? 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗟𝗘 said quietly. Scoping out the competition, Bakugo said as he walked past her and towards the crowd. Because we're the kids that survived the villain attack. Makes sense that they'd want to get a look at us before the sports festival. It's true, we did come here to get a look at you, 𝗀്സോ said as he appeared from the crowd. Tell me, are all hero course kids as modest as you? Gotta say, disillusioned if this is what you're like. Did you know there are a few of us who tried to get into the hero course but ended up in general studies and other courses? Depending on how things go during the sports festival, we can end up being transferred into the hero course. And the reverse is possible for you. That's great, 𝐬𝐬 said as he walked forward. He stopped in front of 𝗀്സോ and held out his hand. That means that a large amount will be giving your all to take our places. This is going to a great festival where we will be giving it our all. It just gets me fired up. I'm 𝐬𝐬 Michiya, it's nice to meet you. And I'm cheering for you. It would be great if we could replace this ticking time bomb with someone who seems more calm like you. When he said this, he gestured to Bakugo, making the blonde angry. 𝗀്സോ looked at 𝐬𝐬's hand before looking back up at his face. I've come here for this declaration of war. I'm not looking to become friends with you guys. Yes, same here, came Tetsutetsu's voice. Soon he appeared from the crowd too. I'm from class 1B next door. I heard you guys fought villains, but all I'm seeing is some arrogant BSers. 𝐬𝐬 looked around before pointing at himself, a confused look on his face. Yeah, you act as if this festival is just going to be a walk in the park for you and that it'll be all fun and games. Take this more seriously. You better not make fools of the hero course during the sports festival. Man, I didn't mean to offend anyone. I'm not trying to come off as arrogant, but it seems I offended you. Sorry about that. After that, 𝐬𝐬 walked to the window, opening it and pulling his goggles down. Well, I can't take back my words, but I'll try to change your opinion of me during the sports festival. Hey, can someone close the window? After saying that, he stepped through the window, surprising most of the people watching. He then used his quirk to lower himself to the ground without harming himself and started walking towards the school gate. But he didn't get far. Wow, I wasn't expecting to see that on my way home, came a cheerful voice. Are you from that class of first years in the hero course everyone is talking about? What's your name, what's your quirk? Are those goggles so you can fly without the wind affecting your vision? Why didn't you just leave like normal and come fly down instead? 𝐬𝐬 gave a small sigh and turned around, seeing the person he had expected. After all, 𝗏𝗏𝗏 was probably the only one he remembered that unleashed such a torrent of questions non-stop. Hey, how about giving him a chance to answer? Mirio said as he walked up. Hey there, nice to meet you. I'm Mirio and this is 𝗏𝗏𝗏. Hey there, I'm 𝐬𝐬. And to answer your torrent of questions. Yes, I am from that class, already answered the second question. My quirk is pyrokinesis, and yes, that is what my goggles are for. And there was a crowd of people who wanted to check out my class before the school festival, so it was easier to go out the window than to go through the crowd. Nice to meet you. Sorry, normally I would talk with you more, but I have to be somewhere. And to answer your upcoming question, 𝗏𝗏𝗏, I'm meeting a friend and no, I don't have some second quirk or special skill that let me know what you were wondering. Just an educated guess. 𝐬𝐬 ran off, leaving the two upperclassmen behind. Wow, he's good. I was going to ask him those things. Mirio chuckled. Well, it seems he was able to read your personality pretty quickly. Or maybe he somehow knew you already. Either way, he seems like an interesting fellow. Later, that night, 𝐬𝐮𝐽 stood in his vigilante outfit on top of the same building as when he talked with Tsukachi. When he had given the file to the detective, he had also included a means to contact him. He made sure that the detective couldn't try and trace it back to him with the help of Kat and her technical genius. He was there because Tsukachi had made use of this and asked to meet with 𝐬𝐽. He sat on the ledge, his mask partially up as he ate a popsicle. If I check the security tape at this corner store, will I be able to see who you really are? 𝐬𝐽 turned around to see Tsukachi and Aizawa. He finished his popsicle and put his mask down before standing up. Nope, and I got to say, the look on the cashier's face was kind of funny. It was the same one as the last time I was there, though he didn't recognize me because of this sweet new costume. And detective, why is there a hero with you? You aren't trying to catch me, are you? No, Aizawa lazily said. Well, it depends on how things go. For now, we just want to talk to you about the information you gave the detective here 2 nights ago. I take this to mean that Mr. Tsukachi here believes at least a bit and has decided to go to the heroes. Well, it also has to do with what you said about sending people to the USJ. I believe I have already told you about how I knew about that event, detective. Except I know you were lying about your quirk. So the first thing I want to talk to you about, how did you know about the attack on the USJ? As I have already told you, I am not working with or for any villains. And I asked those people to go there so they could help you. Well, why not go yourself? Aizawa asked. We have eyewitness accounts of 2 unknown people, but there was no description that matched yours. Maybe you just wore a different outfit, but considering you showed up in it on the same day, I doubt it. I was busy helping other people. Aizawa looked at Tsukachi, who nodded, telling the hero that 𝐬𝐽 was telling the truth. Look, can we drop this already? Have you started looking into the Sesake like I asked? We have asked the Night Eye Agency. But we're unsure about this. How do you even know this, and how do we know this is true? 𝐬𝐽 threw his hands in the air and turned around while Deku began laughing. Okay, this is starting to get real old. While you guys are being such indecisive dumbass, little girl is being held captive. She is suffering terrible things that many would never come close to knowing, being experimented on. This is why I dislike heroes. If you guys won't help, then I will do what I can to find people who will. And if I have to go it alone, then I will. I don't care if I die, just as long as she is free, something that a real hero would do. Listen here. As a vigilante, you may think you're doing the right thing, but you're still breaking the law, Aizawa said. 𝐬𝐽 turned back around quickly, and the other 2 could tell he was getting upset. I don't want to hear SHT like that from you. I chose the lesser of 2 evils. What do you think is better? Me dying or going to prison? Or multiple either suffering or dying because I refuse to take action? So tell me, am I going to take on that entire organization myself? Or are you guys going to do something? Aizawa gave him his signature smile. The way you put it, you sound almost like a hero. We never said anything about just sitting idly by. We only asked how you know all this. 𝐬𝐽 sighed and started to turn back around. If that is all you wanted to talk about, then I'm out of here. But before he could move, Aizawa grabbed him with his scarf and used his quirk on him. Sorry, but I can't just let you leave. We have questions for you. 𝐬𝐽 looked back at them and saw that Tsukachi had also drawn his gun. How cute. You should know by now. It's not the law that makes me help you or keeps me from attacking you, but my morals. But those same morals are okay with me keeping myself from getting locked up so I can help others in the future. 𝐬𝐽 quickly reached up to the arm that was grabbed and pushed a button on his gauntlet, detaching it from his body, freeing him. As he did, he also activated the shield on his other arm, blocking Tsukachi's bullet. Aizawa ran forward, dropping the gauntlet and attacking 𝐬𝐽. 𝐬𝐽 dodged the scarf and the hero's flurry of punches and kicks. He then grabbed one of his punches and judo flipped him onto his back. He took that moment to activate a smoke bomb and grab his gauntlet before disappearing. Tsukachi got a phone call and answered it, hearing Night Eye's voice on the other side. I think we might have found something. It was the day of the UA Sports Festival, and 𝐬𝐽 was with the rest of his class in the 1A prep room given to them for the festival. Everyone was either chatting or mentally preparing themselves. But that atmosphere was momentarily disrupted when Todoroki practically declared war. "Ooh, a declaration of war from the class's strongest," Kaminari muttered. "I don't know," Jiraiya told him. "ಮಿchiya was able to beat him pretty easily, and remember the USJ. I think he's the one who should have the title of strongest in this class." It's not that big of a deal," Izuku said. "I've simply given it my all in honing my skills and have taught myself other skills. But I'm sure if Todoroki used his full power then he would be much stronger. Especially if he also worked on close combat and found creative new ways to use his abilities instead of straightforward attacks." "What do you think you're doing?" Todoroki asked. "I'm going to become a great hero using only my right side. And we're about to go against each other, so why are you trying to help your enemy?" "What are you talking about? We're classmates, so why wouldn't I help you? I wouldn't be very cool of me if I didn't try to help you out. And you shouldn't limit yourself like that. You were born with that power, so you should use it to help elevate yourself to new heights." Todoroki frowned and walked up to Izuku, who looked up from his seat, and lowered his voice so only Izuku would hear him. "Did my father put you up to this? You have similar quirks and seem to want to aim for the top, so I wouldn't be surprised if you went to him to help better yourself. In which case, he must want you to get me to use that disgusting quirk of his." Izuku just smiled up to him, also lowering his voice. "There is no way in hell I'd do something like that. Your father may be the number 2 hero, but I see him for what he really is. A hot-tempered fool who only cares about becoming number 1 and not about being a true hero. And what do you mean by his quirk? That fire you got in your left side, it's your power, your flames." Their talk was interrupted when an announcement came, telling them to start heading outside. As he got up, Izuku said one final bit to Todoroki. "I don't care about whatever daddy issues you've got going on. But don't let that grudge hold you back from your true potential." Everyone from all the different first-year classes walked out into the middle of the arena. On the side of the field there was a platform where Midnight stood. As everyone walked out, Present Mic could be heard from the commentary box, announcing the arrival of the different classes. Though what he said for the arrival of Class A was extra extravagant. "Now pipe down everyone," Midnight said, silencing all muttering among the students. "We'll now have a word from your student representative, which is Izuku ಮಿchiya." "Huh, it's you," Bakuga growled. Probably because he got the highest score on the entrance exam, Izuku told him. "Highest in the hero exam," someone from General Studies muttered under his breath, but Izuku heard him. He turned to look at the student, earning himself a scowl from them. He walked up onto the platform and stood in front of the microphone that had been set up. He took a short bow before speaking. "Hey there, thank you everyone for coming out here to watch it as we give it your all. And my fellow students, let's give it your all. I can't wait to see who will be in the top spots with me." He received a couple of glares, but he also received applause. "And 2 more things. Everyone is making too much of a big deal about my class, especially the other classes. We didn't want to be attacked by villains, but it has turned into some big publicity booster." He turned around and pointed up at the commentary box. "Come on, Mike, get it together. We are all students who are here to give it your all. My class isn't the only one who will prove to be amazing. Your announcement when the classes appeared wasn't very plus ultra." A small sorry could be heard through the speakers, making many people chuckle. "And finally, to those of you in the other departments who are trying to take our spots in the hero course. I know some of you will make great heroes, but failed to because of how combat-based the entrance exam was. I wish you luck, and I hope those truly worthy will be the ones I will be seeing in my class and Class B during graduation. Let's all be plus ultra." As he walked down the steps, he did so to the sound of thunderous applause, even from other classes. Just as he planned, he seemed to lessen the attention and resentment towards him and his class. "Now then," Midnight said, grabbing everyone's attention. "We will get started right away. These are the qualifiers. It's in this stage that so many are sent home crying each year. And the fateful first event for this year is this." As she said that, she gestured to the large screens around the stadium, where it announced they would be doing an obstacle course race. At one side of the stadium near the students, a large gate began opening up. It will be a 4-kilometer race with all of the classes. As long as you don't go off course, you are allowed to do anything. As she said this, the students began gathering at the gate, trying to get as close to the starting line as they could. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐴, however, chose to stay in the back, which caused some students to look at him strangely. When the signal of the race was given, a couple people realized his reasoning when practically everyone in the front was frozen in place by Todoroki. He ran forward, putting distance between him and everyone else, or so he thought. But the members of Class A began appearing from the crowd using different methods to make it by. Warning, the following will appear to be a bit dumb and weird, but the image popped into my head and now I have to put it in. Though I did manage to dial back the crazy by at least a bit. 𝐻𝐮𝐴 began to fly past them, but as he entered the tunnel, he noticed that Jiro and Uraraka were struggling to make it through the crowd. Hey Uraraka, quick! Use your quirk on yourself and Jiro. She looked over and without questioning it she did as he told her. As he passed by them, he shifted the location of his flames and grabbed both of them before putting them on his back. Now use your quirk on me. He felt himself speed up right after feeling her touch his back. Alright, say it with me now. 𝗧𝗜𝗧𝗟𝗘. Todoroki turned when he heard members of his class making it past the barrier of frozen students, but he completely stopped when he saw 𝐻𝐮𝐴 quickly speeding out of the tunnel with Jiro and Uraraka on his back. And he wasn't the only one. The students had been expecting some tough challenges and competition, but they didn't expect to see a shouting person spewing out fire and flying by like a jet while carrying 2 other students. The 3 of them passed Todoroki and were quickly pulling ahead, barely a second passing since he first saw them. And he could have sworn he saw 𝐻𝐮𝐴 wink at him as he passed him. He quickly ran after them, but gave a small smile when he saw some obstacles that would help slow them down. Up ahead, the small one-pointer robots from the entrance exam appeared, but surprisingly to Todoroki, he heard 𝐻𝐮𝐴 begin laughing. Hold on ladies, the ride's about to get wild. He turned off the flames from his hands, his lack of weight carrying him forward. A robot pulled back an arm and prepared to punch him, but flames exploded from 𝐻𝐮𝐴's right hand and he rolled over while avoiding the attack. He stabilized himself and continued doing this, passing all of the small robots. Then 3 of the giant zero-pointers appeared and prepared to attack. Uraraka, cancel your quirk and then hold on even tighter. Without any more flames and gravity affecting them again, they began to fall. But before they hit the ground he lowered his hands and feet and shot flames from them, causing them to hover off of the ground. They continued to zip forward, 𝐻𝐮𝐴 quickly zooming past them. Once they reached the next part of the race, which was an area similar to a canyon range with ropes attaching different areas, the girls hopped off and thanked him for his help. Hey, no problem ladies. I couldn't just leave you guys behind when you seem to be struggling with that crowd. I can be loud and a bit impulsive at times, but deep down I am also a hero and gentleman. 𝐻𝐮𝐴 looked back and saw that the zero-pointers were falling after being frozen, just like what he saw in his world. Well, got a blast. 𝐻𝐮𝐴 stood up and took a step into the air, dropping down into the opening in the ground. Normally the girls would be worried like the spectators, but they knew he was doing it for show. And sure enough, he came flying out, though not in a completely normal way. But because he was 𝐻𝐮𝐴 freaking Michiya. Flames came from his feet, his shoes and socks in his hands so they wouldn't get burned. But he wasn't flying normal. He was instead standing upright as if on solid ground. He manipulated the flames around his feet and created a circular platform that he stood on while flying over the course. After about a minute of flying like that, he expanded the platform and laid down on it, propping his head with one of his hands, yawing as he did. And he stayed like that all the way up to the finish line. He landed on the ground and put his socks and shoes on before laying on his back and watching the clouds while waiting for the others. After a couple minutes he heard breathing and turned to see Izuku, Todoroki, Bakugo, Uraraka, and Jiro in that order, running into the area. He stood up and high-fived Izuku before congratulating him on coming in second. Soon after, more students began pouring into the stadium. Midnight announced that the top 42 would be the only ones to pass on to the next part of the sports festival. Now then, the next part will be a cavalry battle, she said. Each of you has been assigned a point value based on your ranking, and they will be added with your teammates for a team's total points. The rider will be wearing a headband with this number displayed. And only the top 4 teams will be passing to the final part. But now everyone was staring at 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴, who on the outside was as calm as ever. But on the inside he was starting to get uneasy, and Deku was laughing hysterically. Seriously, I remembered the part where Todoroki froze the robots, he thought. But I couldn't remember this 𝐬𝐻𝗃 might be a little hard to find a team who is willing to pretty much fight every other team as they try to take our crazy high number headband. God, this is amazing, Deku laughed. You're so intent on playing this part of a hero to try and repent for your sins, but you might not live long enough to do much. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 looked over at Bakugo, who seemed ready to kill, and realized that Deku had a point. They were given 15 minutes to form their teams. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 looked around, seeing that everyone else seemed to be avoiding him. But it made sense since most teams would end up targeting him. He was worried that no one would end up wanting to team up with him when he felt someone tap him on the shoulder. He turned around and saw Uraraka and Izuku. Do you want to team up? They asked. You guys? 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 said. How is it I was blessed with such great friends? Alright. Let's do this, I'm sure we can win this. Well, it will be difficult since everyone will target us, Izuku began muttering. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 decided to stop him before he started one of his muttering storms. Don't be so closed-minded. They can try to get our points, but if I'm the rider then our victory is guaranteed. What do you mean? Well, this is a cavalry battle where quirks are allowed. The winners will be the ones with the most points, and we would be targeted because of that. But just like a normal cavalry battle, the rider can't touch the ground. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 smiled and held up a finger, igniting a small flame. But I can fly, so if I wanted I could spend the entire match in the air. Now I won't be perfectly safe, but I would be pretty much untouchable. And since I can manipulate fire, I can also go on the offense. My quirk gives me offense, defense, and maneuverability all at the same time. You're right, Uraraka exclaimed. We would just need to carry you at the beginning, and then during the rest of it, we can be ready to catch you if necessary while also trying to take other teams' headbands. Exactly. There is just one more person who I think should be a part of our team, and they should be here in one. Hey Mr. Number 1 spot, team up with me, came a hyper voice. A split second later, 𝐻𝗃𝐴 came from behind and stood next to 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 with her face close to. You'll stand out, so this is perfect. Yep, perfect. 𝐻𝗃𝐴 from the support course. I hear you're pretty talented and a bit eccentric, so I'm sure you have some pretty helpful inventions. And terrifying ones, Deku muttered. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 had to refrain from shuddering as he remembered 𝐻𝗃𝐴's bold and sometimes insane personality. On more than one occasion when he was in the support course lab, she almost blew everything up. He had managed to stop it from happening, but other times he wasn't as lucky. And she would also like to ask him to test different things out for her. Have we met before? No, but I'm in the hero course. And I know that my life and the lives of other heroes will be in the hands of you support course students, so I've kept an eye out. Like I said, I've heard good things about you. Well, whatever, with you in the spotlight, I will also be in the spotlight by being a member of your team. And by extension, so will my babies. Her babies, Izuku whispered to Uraraka. She means her inventions, 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 told him. I wasn't just lying around after the race. I kept an eye on the screens and I noticed some of your inventions. Like those hover boots. So then it looks like we have our team. Now then, who's ready to win this thing? Alright everyone, your 15 minutes are up, Midnight announced. Let's get a battle cry. Here comes the starting signal. Everyone had formed up in their teams. Once everyone was ready, the start signal was given, and unsurprising, pretty much every team started running towards 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴's team. But that was when the surprising thing started. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 shifted himself around before standing up on Izuku's shoulders with his arms on his waist. Yes. I can feel your burning passion and it makes my own flames burn even brighter. And as such, I cannot allow myself to lose. Uraraka and 𝐻𝗃𝐴 left the group and ran forward, leaving 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 and Izuku alone. People saw this as their chance and ran forward, but before they could reach him, 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 began laughing again. He bent his knees before jumping up and doing a backflip. Everyone thought he was going to hit the ground and disqualify himself, But before he touched the ground he shot fire from his hands and feet, flying into the air. "What? That has to against the rules," 𝐻𝐿𝐼 exclaimed. "Nope, like Midnight said, we're allowed to use our quirks. Which is exactly what I'm doing. There were no rules that stated I couldn't fly. But enough about that, I think we need to have a talk about your attire, young lady. You may be invisible but you still can't be going around topless. 𝐻𝐿𝐼. Like you said, I'm invisible. We can see through you but the same can't be said about touch. Look how uncomfortable Sato and Kota are. And I would feel a bit wrong when I go on the attack." "Wait, attack?" 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗘 exclaimed. 𝐬𝐵 grinned down at everyone. "Why yes, while you've been distracted, it has already begun." As he said that, 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃 and 𝐻𝐿𝐼 felt their headbands be tugged off, and turned to see Uraraka and Hatsum. They began to reach out for them, but 𝐬𝐵 quickly swooped down and grabbed them before flying back into the air. "This is a team event, so it would be dangerous to take your eyes off of us. Though you can't really keep an eye on all of us that easily." Suddenly he dodged to the side as Tsu's tongue appeared and tried to grab his headbands. It came in for another attack, but instead of dodging, 𝐬𝐵 caught it. Before she could retract it, he quickly tied it up in a knot before throwing it back to the ground. He followed it with his eyes and saw it retreat into Shoji's arms that he was holding up. "Bastard." 𝐬𝐵 turned around and saw Bakugo come flying through the air with his explosions. 𝐬𝐵 grinned and raced forward, dodging an attack before punching Bakugo in the gut. Then before he could recover, he grabbed the blonde and threw him down to his team, where Sero had been getting ready to tape 𝐬𝐵. But he was forced to change targets to catch Bakugo so they wouldn't be disqualified. 𝐬𝐵 flew down towards the ground, gathering 2 more headbands that his team had gathered. But before he could start flying back, he was surrounded by ice. And there was Todoroki and his team. Todoroki shot a wave of ice at him but 𝐬𝐵 held up his hand and shot a wave of fire that broke through instantly, forcing Todoroki's team to move. While they did that, 𝐬𝐵 flew upward, getting away from the other teams that had begun to gather. "Hey Midnight Sensei," 𝐬𝐵 called out. "I know you're excited to see which teams make it through, but I might make it so only my team makes it to the next stage." Before anyone could begin to understand what he meant, he held up his hands. He shot out a massive amount of flames and formed them into the shape of people before sending them to the ground. Once they landed, they all ran towards the different teams, pushing, shoving, or trying to take headbands. The spectators watched in wonder as riders began falling to the ground. Sooner than anyone had expected, a horn sounded, signaling the end of the event. Not all the teams had been taken out, but once there were only 3 teams other than 𝐬𝐵's, it was brought to an end. 𝐬𝐵 lowered himself to the ground and looked around at the teams that had been spared. In first place was his team. Second place was Todoroki's team and Bakugo's took third. And in last place was Shinsu's team. 𝐬𝐵 chuckled as he realized that the lineup was the same as it had been in his world. Except he and Izuku had taken Tokoyami and Teo's place. A couple of the people from teams that had been disqualified gave him some dirty looks, especially Monoma, but he just grinned and held up a peace sign. Then he was almost knocked over when Uraraka and Izuku ran over and hugged him, cheering about their victory. Before the next event there was a break so everyone could eat lunch. But instead of getting something to eat, 𝐬𝐵 snuck off. He had some business to take care of. He walked into the bathroom and made sure no one was there before taking out his phone. He sent a quick text to Taigen and a few seconds later, a portal opened up in front of him and he stepped through and into Taigen's pocket dimension. He quickly grabbed his vigilante suit that was waiting for him and put it on. A minute later another portal opened up and he stepped out on top of a building and looked around. It didn't take long to find what he was looking for, it was easy since they weren't silent. Down running in the street below was Ida's older brother, Tensei Ida. The hero quickly slowed down and turned around, before stopping in front of an alleyway he had just passed, and 𝐬𝐵 knew what was about to happen next. He quickly dropped down to the ground and ran to the alleyway, and just as he had guessed, there was the hero killer stain. Tensei turned around when he heard 𝐬𝐵 appeared and prepared to fight both him and Stain. "Hold on," 𝐬𝐵 told him. "I'm not here to hurt you, 𝐮𝐭𝐻𝐿𝐼. I'm here to help." "And who are you?" 𝐬𝐵 was about to answer, but stopped and took out his staff and deflected a knife that 𝐮𝐮𝐻𝐿 had thrown at 𝐼nganium. The hero turned just as 𝐮𝐮𝐻𝐿 had started running at him and began to swing his sword. 𝐻𝐿𝐼nganium blocked this with his staff before trying to kick 𝐮𝐮𝐻𝐿. He jumped back, but 𝐼nganium chased after him, swinging his leg to try and kick him. 𝐮𝐿𝐼nganium ducked, but 𝐻𝐿𝐼nganium stepped forward and swung his staff down, hitting him in the face and knocking him down. 𝐻𝐿𝐼nganium reached behind him and pulled out his gun, shooting 𝐮𝐿𝐼nganium with a tranquilizer. "Well, that was easier than I expected," 𝐻𝐿𝐼nganium muttered as he put his weapons away. He turned around and saw that 𝐼nganium was now facing him and had a fighting stance. "Hey, calm down. I just helped you out." "Well, tell me who you are. I doubt you're some new hero, so who are you and why did you help me out?" "Oh, don't even start with me. Seriously, Tensei, if I hadn't shown up you probably would have been seriously injured. I've seen his moves and he could have easily outmaneuvered you, especially in this alleyway. Besides, I don't really think you have too much of a problem with vigilantes." What are you talking about? And how do you know my name?" "Oh, I know what I'm talking about. I mean, there's your jogging buddy from Naruhata." "How do you know about that?" 𝐻𝐿𝐼nganium shook his head. He was about to say something when he heard police sirens in the distance. Well, I guess that's all for today, folks, but tune in for the next issue of this story called Our Lives. Before Tensei could even say anything to 𝐻𝐿𝐼nganium's weird comment, 𝐻𝐿𝐼nganium ran off deeper into the alleyway. After hesitating a moment, Tensei ran after him. 𝐻𝐿𝐼nganium turned a corner and when Tensei turned it, 𝐻𝐿𝐼nganium had disappeared. What the heck? Where did he go? Meanwhile, 𝐻𝐿𝐼nganium was changing out of his vigilante outfit inside of 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐼n's pocket dimension. A few minutes later, he was exiting the bathroom at UA's stadium and went to the cafeteria to quickly grab something to eat before the final event. This is still a sports festival, so we will be having events for those who weren't able to advance to the finals, President announced. "We even brought in cheerleaders to get you all pumped up." What's that? Everyone turned and saw the girls from Class A in cheerleading uniforms, but they weren't the only ones. Standing with them in a male version of the outfit was 𝐻𝐿𝐼nganium. He turned to Kaminari and gave him a peace sign before turning back to the crowd. He tried to keep a straight face, but busted out laughing after looking at everyone's reactions for a second. Jiro looked ready to attack Kaminari, and 𝐻𝐿𝐼nganium was going to watch, but he heard someone call his name and turned around. At the end of the stands, standing by the railing were some familiar faces. "Hey guys, I didn't expect to see you here," he called out as he walked towards them. "Forget that, what the hell are you wearing?" 𝐻𝐮 asked. "Oh, this." Kaminari tricked the girls into thinking they needed to do some cheer stuff. And at first I was going to tell them he was lying. But then I thought to myself that it would be funny to join them. I mean, look at people, some of them seem to find it hilarious. Then 𝐻𝐿𝐼nganium lowered his voice. "Besides, I don't think it's too unexpected with the personality I'm supposed to have. At the very least, the girls didn't question it much. Especially after I said I would do it so they wouldn't be the only ones and they felt a bit more comfortable." "Well, I know I find it funny," AI said as she began taking pictures. 𝐻𝐿𝐼nganium saw this and grinned before striking poses, earning himself laughter from both them and others who saw. "Well, I don't find it as funny," Jiro said, suddenly appearing behind him. She tried to attack him with her earphone jacks, but he dodged them. Eventually she began to calm down and Hagakure convinced the other girls that they might as well go with it. Though 𝐻𝐿𝐼nganium was told that he had no choice and that he better do it with enthusiasm. And he did, and not only out of fear of Jiro and Yaoyorozu. The lineup for the tournament was decided and then the extra events for those not in the finals began. At first it looked like he wasn't moving and Jiro was going to attack him, but then she noticed he was nodding his head as if listening to a beat. Then suddenly he started dancing, making the girls pause for a bit before they began laughing and doing their own part. Because you know what, I personally don't think it would be a good story without some humor and stupidity mixed in. Eventually the side events were over and it was time for the finals. The first match was Izuku against 𝐶INSO. 𝐻𝐿𝐼nganium wasn't next, so he sat with the others in his class to watch the match. The two students stepped onto the arena that 𝐶EMENTOS created with his quirk from different sides. 𝐶INSO began insulting Ojiro because when the lineup for the finals was being decided, he and another student chose not to participate. The moment as the match started, Izuku stepped forward, clearly angry and started to yell at him. But then Izuku suddenly went still. 𝗀𝐿 smiled and told him to step out of bounds, and Izuku turned around and started to walk out. Isaiah sighed and shook his head. Man, that dumps, I can't believe he's going to lose so easily, Deku muttered as he appeared in the seat next to Isaiah. I know, right? Wait, something's off. Before Deku could ask what he meant, Izuku's finger suddenly moved with OFA activated, breaking it and snapping Izuku out of his trance. He turned around and ran toward 𝗀𝐿. 𝗀𝐿 tried to use his quirk on Izuku again, but Izuku refused to answer, as he grabbed 𝗀𝐿 and threw him out of the arena. I think he's a bit more aggressive and direct lately, Isaiah thought to himself. Well, makes sense when someone like us is keeping so close to him, Deku told him. I mean, think about it, one of his best friends is a badass who fought a Nomu and 2 other villains at the same time in one. Except you're not his friend, I am. Isaiah already knew how the other fights were going to turn out, so he didn't pay any attention to them. After a while, Izuku finally showed up after having gone to Recovery Girl for his broken finger. Isaiah told him to wake him up during Mina's and Aoyama's match since he was after them before taking a nap. When Izuku finally did wake him up, he also told him the outcomes of the other fights, which were exactly as Isaiah remembered. He got up and went to the waiting room to wait for his fight to start. He only had to wait for a few minutes before he was called out to the arena. He yawned as he stepped up, while on the other side Yaoyorozu stepped on. You seem really relaxed, especially if you were able to take a nap so easily, Yaoyorozu told him. Do you not see me as a threat? Isaiah lowered his head and rubbed the back of it. Heh. Sorry if I somehow offended you, it wasn't my intention. I was just doing what I can to calm down. Remember when I fought the villain at the USJ? I was doing this to help you, let's just say that during a fight. Midnight gave the signal for the start and Isaiah's head snapped up. I get a little too excitable. Yaoyorozu created a shield and brought it up as Isaiah quickly flew at her. But it didn't help much as he placed a palm on it and blasted a wave of fire that changed into a large hand and pushed her out of the arena. Yaoyorozu stared in shock at the fact that she lost the fight right away. She turned around and was going to walk away, but she felt someone place their arm around her shoulders. She turned her head and saw that it was Isaiah with a sad smile on his face. Sorry for not really giving you a chance, but like I said, I can go overboard sometimes in a fight. Like there's a voice in my head telling me to go crazy. I would have felt bad if you got hurt, so I decided to end things quickly. But I know that losing so quickly can't be good for one's self-esteem. Isaiah began walking forward, bringing Yaoyorozu with him. But you made the right call, it was smart to make yourself a shield. In an actual fight, that would have helped to protect you. And I know it wouldn't be that easy to make yourself something that could literally fight fire, it really just ended up being a bad matchup. By now they were inside and he let go of her and stepped in front of her. So come on, I'd feel terrible if you ended up letting this affect you. Besides, doubt and lack of confidence in one's own ability is something a hero shouldn't have. It leads to mistakes and lack of action. So come on, let me see that smile. Isaiah held out his fist. Yaoyorozu stared at it for a bit before finally smiling and giving him a fist bump. Thanks. And you're right. I can't let this one defeat get to me. I must learn from my failures and use that knowledge to make myself stronger. Am I interrupting something? The two of them turned and saw Uraraka standing there. Oh, it seems we've been caught. Wait, caught? What did I walk in all? Isaiah wrapped his arm around Yaoyorozu's shoulders again. We're secretly lovers. And of course, and not at all surprising to him, he got an elbow to the face. Well, it seems you really are over that fight. Well then, mission accomplished. Though Yaoyorozu, since you can make so many things, how about making yourself a better sense of humor, or at least make yourself more tolerable to mine? You deserve it, that wasn't funny. What if she believed you? Uraraka decided to stop listening to their conversation and left since she had to get to her fight. Well, would that have been such a bad thing? Isaiah asked as he started to walk off. Seriously, Yaoyorozu, that kind of hurts my feelings. I'm not that bad, am I, Momo? Isaiah stopped and turned around. What was that? Yaoyorozu quickly walked past him. I said call me Momo. We're friends, so we don't have to be so formal and call each other by our last names. I wish you luck in your next fight, 𝐬𝐬𝐴. 𝐬𝐬𝐴 watched her walk down the hall and turn the corner quickly, a small smile forming on his face. He felt a hand on his shoulder and turned to see Deku with a smirk. Well now, I didn't expect you to go around like some playboy. Shut up, I don't want to hear that from you. I believe you were the one in control when Shigaraki called us Casanova. Well, she seemed a bit more interested in you right now than her and the other two did when I was in control. I only embarrassed them with flattery, but you're actually getting close. Drop it already, why do you even care? You have to longing for anything like that and I know better. After all, thanks to the paths we've chosen for ourselves, neither of us have the luxury of having anything like that. After all, you're a monster, and I'm not much better. Deku chuckled a bit before fading into thin air. 𝐬𝐬𝐴 shook his head and began walking down the hall. On his way to the rest of the class, he ran into Endeavor. The large hero looked down on him and a scowl started to form. You were the one that took first from my son in both the first and second events. And though he didn't say anything to me, I heard that he lost to you in a mock battle at the beginning of the year. I've also heard that you put up a good fight at the USJ. Make no mistake, if you go against my son, he will defeat you. He has a duty to surpass All Might. Your power seems surprisingly similar to mine, but that won't be enough, especially with that attitude of yours, and based on that display earlier you also seem to be an idiot, so he'll defeat you. 𝐬𝐬𝐴 had been looking forward the whole time, but now he slowly raised his head. When their eyes met, Endeavor's flames suddenly went out. Head, I have a question for you. Do you know what the difference between a cup of coffee in the morning and your opinion is? I ask for the coffee, as for your opinion, I don't give a damn about it. Now move it, unlike other people, I don't care if you're the number 2 hero or not. You could be the number 1 or someone even more important, but I'd still whoop your butt if you PSS me off. The flames on Endeavor reappeared and flared up. What the hell did you just say to me? I'll look at the big man, flaring up in order to intimidate a high school freshman. What are you trying to prove by putting on this show? All you care about power, and since you failed to surpass All Might yourself, you're pushing it onto your kid. He doesn't have to tell me anything, I still know you're a piece of trash. A truth can walk naked but a lie always has to dress up, and the role of a hero is the perfect costume. Endeavor began to clench his fist, and 𝐬𝐬𝐴 could tell he was pushing it, but he couldn't help himself. Especially with Deku egging him on in his head. Which normally would be a bad thing, but he agreed with it so it was some really effective egging on. 𝐬𝐬𝐴 snapped his fingers and the flames from Endeavor wrapped around his body, before becoming solid at the ends and embedding itself in the wall, pinning him. 𝐬𝐬𝐴 calmly walked past, ignoring the angry hero. Once at the end of the hall he turned back around and extinguished the fire, releasing the hero. You made 3 mistakes in that commentary earlier. 1. My quirk isn't weak. 2. I am dangerous. And finally, you thought I was just some pushover who would bow down to you just because you're a hero. 𝐬𝐬𝐴 walked off leaving the hero alone to fume. When he arrived he saw Uraraka being carried away on a stretcher. Looks like I missed the match. Where were you, Yaoyorozu? You should have gotten here right after me. Did something happen? Yeah, I kinda met Endeavor in the hallway and we had a chat. 𝐬𝐬𝐴 noticed that Todoroki, who had been leaving, stopped and turned to look at him. He spewed some CRP about me having beaten Todoroki in these other events and some other junk, but if we had an actual fight then he'd surpass me. He also said some other nonsense about me being some idiot who messes around. So I pretty much gave him a talking to. Sorry Todoroki, but he might be a little extra set off at dinner tonight. Todoroki just gave him a half smile before walking off. Meanwhile, a couple of the others were staring at 𝐬𝐬𝐴 as if he was crazy. They had no way of telling if 𝐬𝐬𝐴 had been telling the truth, but they did know he had the ball too. 𝐬𝐬𝐴 walked into the second row of seats and sat behind Yaoyorozu and the other girls. He was going to watch the next match with Izuku and Todoroki, he really was. But then he fell asleep before they even made it out to the arena. When he was finally shaken awake it was almost time for his match. He looked around and saw Mina was already gone and decided to leave himself. Before he even made it to the prep room, he heard the announcement that Ito won against Shiozaki and changed his course to the arena. He walked out and stood at one end while Mina stood at the other. Hey Mina, Why didn't you wake me up when you left? Were you hoping to win by default? Hey, I was letting you get some sleep. I knew the others would wake you up. Besides, it's your fault for sleeping during a time like this. What happened to your so-called burning passion? Midnight announced the beginning of the match and 𝐬𝐴 grinned as he shot forward. Mina threw up some acid while skating away, trying to keep 𝐬𝐴 from getting too close. 𝐬𝐴 stopped moving and put his hands in his breathes. Mina saw this as an opening and skated forward. But before she could do anything to attack, a wall of fire surrounded 𝐬𝐴 in it. He manipulated and forced it outwards, creating more flames but keeping the old ones there so Mina couldn't just through. Mina backed up, before sighing and surrendered. Once she did, 𝐬𝐴 made the flames disappear. He walked over to Mina and held out his fist. She smiled back and bumped fist with him and they walked back inside together. On their way back they passed by the infirmary and they noticed Iida and Uraraka waiting outside. Hey guys, what are you doing here? He asked. Oh yeah, I forgot that you somehow slept through all that, Mina exclaimed. What? Uraraka stepped forward with a worried look on her face. During his fight with Todoroki, Deku was badly injured. He made him use his flames and they went all out with a crazy final attack. But even before that, Deku had broken both his arms and all his fingers. 𝐬𝐴 felt a vein stand up on his forehead. He quickly burst into the infirmary seeing Recovery Girl standing in front of him. Ah, I was about to come out and tell you that the surgery is done now. 𝐬𝐴 felt a couple more veins and stormed over to where Izuku was starting to get out of his bed. Izuku started to say something but before he could he was silenced by a slap to the face. Oi, what were you thinking? Here let me explain something simple to you, breaking your bones is a bad thing. Yet you keep doing it. And apparently you pretty much egged Todoroki on by making him use his flames, which was nice of you. But at the same time it's stupid. I mean seriously, surgery. He would have continued on but Recovery Girl hit him on the back of the head with her cane. Okay, I get you're worried but I don't need you making his condition worse. 𝐬𝐴 rubbed his head and apologized to the old nurse. He then looked at Izuku and shook his head before leaving. Whatever, I'm going now. I'm probably going against Bakugo next. Either that or a very tired and beat up Kirishima. He walked up back to the rest of his class and watched the match between Kirishima and Bakugo, where Bakugo won just like he remembered. And then was the match between Todoroki and Iida. Iida put up a good fight but in the end Todoroki won. Bakugo was already gone and entering the arena. Knowing it would take too long to walk down 𝐬𝐴 just flew over. Heh, trying to make a grand entrance, Bakugo scoffed. Well do whatever you like, I'm still going to win. 𝐬𝐴 grinned at him. He could feel himself starting to get excited. Not only would this be a good fight, but he also liked the idea of beating up Bakugo. My, what an angry look on your face. An inexperienced person might think that's some BLD lust. But trust me, it ain't nearly enough to worry me. How about this? I'm feeling generous, so during this fight I won't move from this spot. It should be easier if you have a stationary target. Bakugo growled and as soon as Midnight announced the start of the match he came flying through the air. But a fist made of fire appeared and punched him in the gut from below, sending him higher into the air. The pair FO fist slammed him into the ground. They were about to begin punching him but Bakugo rolled out of the way and raised his hand at 𝐬𝐴 and shot off a large explosion. But when a hand grabbed him and threw him away, the smoke cleared to reveal 𝐬𝐴 perfectly fine and with a smug grin. Bakugo used explosions to keep himself from flying out of bounds and ran back towards 𝐬𝐴. But two hands grabbed his legs from behind and slammed him onto his back. He began to get back up, but when he looked up he saw a dozen flaming fists right before he was hit by a barrage of attacks. After a few seconds, the punches stopped and everyone could see that Bakugo was starting to struggle to stand. Well then Bakugo, I guess this is the end, 𝐬𝐴 told him. He gathered all the flames together and began condensing it until it was the size of a baseball in his palm. Bakugo raised his hands and unleashed a giant explosion like what his gauntlets would let him do, but 𝐬𝐴 pointed his palm at him and shot it. The fire blasted forward, the explosion instantly getting stopped and Bakugo was sent flying back into the stadium walls. Bakugo laid still for a moment before starting to shakily stand up. He looked up at the arena in time to see 𝐬𝐬 dust his hands off before walking away. He growled under his breath and began to stand up but fell down to his knees. Two small robots showed up with a stretcher, but he shoved them away and managed to get to his feet and walked to Recovery Girl. On his way to the prep room, 𝐬𝐬 ran into Endeavor again. At least that's what he thought, but then he realized that Endeavor had actually been waiting for him. So, it looks like you'll be facing off against Shoto after all, huh, you cocky brat. Oh, I'm the cocky one. Seriously, I thought burning trash was illegal, but hey, you heroes get special treatment, so people ignore the broken law that is your body. Heh, you seem to think that because you're quirk you have an advantage over me. Because of that, you're failing to see your place. Suddenly Endeavor was pushed against the wall with more strength than he expected to come from 𝐬𝐬, his hand around Endeavor's throat. Listen here, I'm not like this because of my quirk. Even without my pyrokinesis I'm stronger than you. Listening to people like you who seem to treat quirks as if they're the only important thing about a person really makes me sick. You demon brat, do you know who I am? Yeah, a piece of trash that abuses his family. I've already told you that I don't respect your position. Present Mick's voice came from the speakers, telling Todoroki and 𝐬𝐬 to head to the arena. 𝐬𝐬 let Endeavor go, before walking back to the arena. Don't come looking to start a fight like this again, Endeavor. It won't go well for you. 𝐬𝐬 walked out and saw Todoroki already standing in the arena and stepped in himself. You seem a bit upset, Todoroki commented. Yeah, that burning trash can of a man that calls himself your father showed up again. He was waiting for me and tried to act like he was tough SHT. So sorry if I end up hurting you, but I'm a little set off now. 𝐬𝐬 took off his gym shirt, revealing his muscular body underneath, and tossed it out of the arena. Oh my, why are you taking off your shirt? Midnight asked. Not that I dislike it or anything. And I have to say, I wasn't expecting so many muscles underneath. I'll probably burn it in this fight, so I went ahead and took it off to prevent that, 𝐬𝐬 told her. Satisfied with his answer, not that it really mattered, Midnight announced the start of the match. Instantly Todoroki created a large iceberg like in his fight with 𝗬𝗧. Everyone watched, unable to see what had happened to 𝐬𝐬. But then a hole started to melt in the ice and 𝐬𝐬 walked out, the top half of his body on fire. He began cracking his knuckles while putting out his flames. Come now Todoroki, that can't be all you got. Man, talk about a bad matchup. Even if you wanted to use your flames, it would be a terrible idea because of my quirk, and my quirk also melts your ice. Seriously, I just happen to have a quirk that can handle the other two top students of my class. Todoroki tried another large attack, though not as big as the first one. 𝐬𝐬 held up his hand and created a barrier of fire so hot that it melted the ice the moment they made contact. While he did that, 𝐬𝐬 kicked his socks and shoes off. When he stood up, Todoroki noticed that 𝐬𝐬's arms and feet seemed to have started glowing, and he could both see and feel waves of heat coming off of them. Suddenly, 𝐬𝐬 was nearly in front of him and Todoroki was barely able to put up an ice barrier. But 𝐬𝐬 broke through with a single hit, and Todoroki could feel the heat a lot more strongly. 𝐬𝐬 grabbed Todoroki by the front of his shirt, and when he did Todoroki felt like his skin was starting to burn even though their bodies weren't in contact with each other. 𝐬𝐬 threw Todoroki towards the end of the arena. Todoroki was able to create ice and formed a curved wall that moved him away from the end as he slid on it. He was going to try and attack again, but 𝐬𝐬 shot flames, forcing Todoroki to jump away because he knew his ice wouldn't be able to stop it. But the moment he landed, 𝐬𝐬 was in front of him and punched with enough force that Todoroki was sent flying into the ice. When he hit it, he coughed up some BLD and fell to his knees, the wind knocked from his lungs. He looked up just in time to see 𝐬𝐬 kick him in the chest and knock him back down. He looked up and saw that 𝐬𝐬's face seemed strained. Come on man, please just give up already, 𝐬𝐬 told him. I don't want to hurt you too badly, but I easily get carried away in fights. The longer this goes on, the worse it's going to get. Even though he was badly hurt, Todoroki was going to tell him no. But he stopped when he noticed steam coming from 𝐬𝐬's cheek as a tear rolled down and evaporated in the heat. He realized that 𝐬𝐬 really didn't want to hurt him, and he knew he wouldn't win this fight, so putting him through that would just be cruel. Fine, he said while nodding. I surrender. I'm outmatched anyway. 𝐻𝐼𝐴 sighed in relief when Midnight declared him victor and turned off his quirk. But even then, Todoroki could still feel a large amount of heat coming off of his body. He smiled and created a large chunk of ice in his hand and gave it to him. 𝐻𝐼𝐴 grinned and grabbed it, but it started to melt pretty quickly. 𝐻𝐼𝐴 shrugged and walked over to the ice from the battle and laid on it, some steam starting to come out from underneath him. Man, that was crazy, Todoroki told him. I knew you could be pretty hot-blooded, but I wasn't expecting that much. Or for it to be so literal. What was up with that? Like I told you, sometimes I pretty much go into autopilot and go all berserk. For instance, at the USJ, when I helped Momo, Jiro, and Kaminari, I may have used a bit too much force. As in I slammed his head into the ground and threw him around instead of going for a good old knockout punch. But like I said, it doesn't always happen. Depends on the situation and my mood. Like now for example, Endeavor had set me off and fighting you seemed pretty interesting. Suddenly, Recovery Girl was there and hit 𝐻𝐼𝐴 on the head with her cane. And you were the one getting onto Midoriya the most. But here you are, going overboard. Who knows how badly you're burnt? Especially on the inside of your body. I saw what you did, so don't even try denying the possibility of internal burns. Seriously, heating your body up like that to turn it into a weapon like that. You need to learn to rein in that berserker tendency of yours. 𝐻𝐼𝐴 grinned sheepishly up at her. I know, sorry Granny Chio. After the sports festival, the students of UA were given 2 days off from school. 𝐻𝐼𝐴 decided to use this time to focus more on his vigilante work and to try to gather information. It was currently the night of the sports festival, 𝐻𝐼𝐴 choosing to get started right away instead of resting the rest of the day. Cat had found a gang that had been distributing drags in the area, and 𝐻𝐼𝐴, Taigen, Daichi, and 𝗏𝗏𝗏 were on the roof of the building next to their base of operations. Nice suit, but don't you think it might be a little too similar to your hero one? Daichi asked. Well, I didn't expect I would be wearing this ever again, 𝐻𝐼𝐴 told him. But Taigen secretly found someone to fix it up. I'll just make some changes to my hero one. There are some improvements I've been thinking of. Like what? 𝗏𝗏𝗏 asked. You can talk about your makeup and dresses later, Taigen told them. We have work to do. Hey Cat, can you hear me? How do things look? Well, it seems that it's a good thing that this many of you went because security has been tightened. What why? There's a deal taking place. So not only is there heightened security, but also bodyguards for the leaders of what seems to be 2 groups other than the dealers themselves. Interesting, 𝐻𝐼𝐴 said. First a fun-filled day at the sports festival, and now an exciting deal at the vigilante store to get 3 for the price of 1. Glad I decided to take a nap earlier in order to prepare for this. Alright, it doesn't really change much. It just means we have more people to beat up. Otherwise, same plan. Cat, you continue to keep an eye on things. Daichi will come in from above. I'll handle as many of the guards as possible. Once they realize something is up, that's when you 3 will enter while I handle the rest of the perimeter. 𝗏𝗏𝗏, you go through the back, and Izuku goes through the front. And if I can get all the guards on the perimeter without anyone noticing, then I guess we can go with your oh-so-fun plan, Izuku. Oh, I hope so. As the name suggests, it's really fun. And pretty things stupid but whatever, Daichi muttered. He turned his arms into crow wings and covered the rest of his body with black fur. That with his black clothes made it so that he wouldn't be seen in the night sky as he flew onto the roof of the dealer's building, which was an abandoned warehouse. As he did, Taigen teleported the 3 of them to the ground and started dropping people into his pocket dimension, getting their locations from Cat. 𝗏𝗏𝗏 hid by the back entrance, armed with brass knuckles. 𝐻𝐼𝐴 went by the front entrance and pulled out 2 pistols that had been loaded with tranquilizers. As he waited, 𝐻𝐼𝐴 thought about something. Hey Deku, so we still have access to our other quirks? Or you do at least. But we both agree it would be bad if I was killed. So you want a quirk for your vigilante persona, huh? How about astral projection? Hell no, I don't trust you with that. And neither of us have any experience with it. The only reason you took it was because you thought it would be a bad idea to let that guy keep it. Hey, we both know he would have used it to spy on us. especially after the means I used to subjugate his group. Well, come on. Which would be a good one? What about liquid body? That should be good since your vigilante persona relies on martial arts. This can help protect you. Wow, you're being pretty cooperative. Like you said, we share this body, so it would be bad if we died. Of course I would prefer that you didn't do this. What are you complaining about? If you do take control again, then this will mean less competition. And if you break these guys out of prison, you could gain their loyalty. Wait, I thought I was the villain, not you. Hey, if it means you stop complaining and give me a bit of help, then I have no problem with just words. Hey, good point. Alright then, it's not like I can just take control of this body. At least not yet. I can at least make sure you don't get us killed. 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐴 felt a small tingling in his body similar to how it felt when Deku used AFO to take quirks. He lifted his hand to his face and tried activating the quirk, smiling. When he saw his gauntlet fall due to his arm turning to water, he shifted the arm and put the gauntlet on while also turning the quirk off. Hey, I guess you get to do that dumb plan of yours, came 𝗀𝐮𝐬𝐴's voice over the comms. 𝐬𝐮𝐴 grinned under his mask, and he could hear Daichi, 𝗏𝗏𝗏, Cat, and Deku groan. He stood up and reached for the door, throwing it open before strutting inside. 3 well-dressed men as well as about 20 guys armed with weapons or ready to use their quirks turned to look at him. Whoa, 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 hold up, what's going on over here? 𝐬𝐮𝐴 shouted while waving his hands. Instantly turned their guns towards him. Oh yeah, real cute guys. But let's save all this acting talent for when the cameras get here. And don't think I'll pay extra because of all this rehearsal. Who the hell are you? The leader of the drag dealers shouted. He wore an expensive black suit and his skin was covered in scales like a lizard. Me? Oh come on, you know who I am. I'm the one giving you a paycheck. Now let's go ahead and wrap this up and wait for the cameras, and then we can start filming the movie. What the hell are you talking about? You know, the movie. You play the role of the main villain, leading a drag trafficking ring, and I play the part of some cop who had to retire because of injuries. But then my girlfriend found out some things she shouldn't have about your group, so you killed her, making me want to seek revenge. Suddenly shouting could be heard and the crime lords turned around to see the armed men either being thrown around and knocked out, or 𝗧𝗟𝗃 into portals. While they were distracted, 𝐬𝐮𝐴 turned his arms to water, manipulating his hands so the gauntlets wouldn't fall, before extending them and grabbing 2 of the crime lords by the head and smashing them together. The drag lord turned around when he heard their grunts, but was hit in the neck by a tranquilizer before he could do anything. 10 minutes later, the police showed up to find a couple of the villains and their bosses tied up, and the ones that had been caught by 𝗏𝗏𝗏 were knocked out by a canister of gas that got thrown in with them and were sleeping in a pile on the ground. Meanwhile, 𝐬𝐮𝐴 and the other 3 had already changed into normal clothes and were walking into a fast food place. After placing their orders, they sat at a nearby table as they waited for it to be made. What the hell was that? Daichi asked. I know you can do some pretty random stuff, not too surprising since you're a bit mentally unstable, but seriously. Did you think of that CRP beforehand, or did the idea of pretending to be some movie director just pop into your head? What does that even matter? It worked, didn't it? And what do you mean mentally unstable? I just have a voice in my head telling me to murder people and take over the world. All 3 of them looked at him with a concerned look on their face. Oh yeah, speaking of weird and unstable, 𝗀𝐮𝐴 said as he took out his phone. He pressed a few things and showed Daichi and 𝗏𝗏𝗏 a video. 𝐬𝐮𝐴 paled as he recognized what was happening. Look at this RD. Daichi and 𝗏𝗏𝗏 started laughing as they watched. It was a video taken earlier that day during the sports festival, of 𝐬𝐮𝐴 and the other girls during the extra events. Hey now, I already told why I did that. The personality I created for that persona is someone who is a bit loud but also casual and all jovial. You know, being all pumped up, jokes, laid back most of the time. And you know, a bit weird. Though that last part might be because I've been spending too much time with y'all. Hey, we may be a couple of dumb buttes at times, but we're awesome and ridiculous dumb buttes, 𝗏𝗏𝗏 told him. And now Deku is muttering about how much he can't believe that he used to work with you. But whatever. 𝐬𝐮𝐴 heard someone call their number, telling them their food was done and got up to pick it up. When he did, the cashier, a young girl about his age, struck up a conversation with him. So you're like that guy who won the UA Sports Festival, right? Huh, oh yeah I am. Oh my gosh, I knew it. You were totally awesome out there, you really did a good job. And you totally seem like a nice guy, helping out those two girls from your class during the first part. Well, thank you. But I'm sure it was mostly luck. You know, my quirk having an advantage against most of the people I fought in the finals and all. Yeah. That is a good quirk, I wish mine was that cool. I have a fire one too, but it isn't nearly as good. She held up a finger and fire appeared. I can only really light up my finger and toes. I'm like a human candle. 𝐬𝐬𝐴 gave her a small smile and manipulated the flames, forming it into a bird and flew around her head twice before making it disappear. Yeah, I guess I do have a good quirk. But they aren't everything. I actually awaken my quirk late, like really late. Real late bloomer, only got it about 2 years ago. Before then people thought I was quirkless and looked down on me. And I never did anything to stop them or went for help, I just suffered through it. Then one day I met some people, they were terrible people, but they taught me something important. Quirks aren't everything. So I honed my skills, and now instead of my quirk being the thing that guides me on my path forward, it's merely a single thing in my toolbox that I'll use to make my future. 𝐬𝐬𝐴 grabbed the tray of food. So don't feel bad for yourself because your quirk isn't some grand thing. Your problem isn't the problem, but your attitude about the problem. There are things more important than just your quirk. Hey man, you can flirt with your new girlfriend all you want after you get her number, Daichi called over. But I want my burger. 𝐬𝐬𝐴 looked over at him. Seriously man. Hey, what do you care? I doubt you'd even have the guts to ask for her number. 𝐬𝐬𝐴 sighed and shook his head and turned back around to say goodbye, but when he did he saw the girl place a napkin on his tray. Here's my number, maybe you can tell me more some other time when I'm not working or you don't have hungry friends. 𝐬𝐬𝐴 smiled and nodded before walking back to the table. Hey, I know you said charismatic, but since when did 𝐬𝐬𝐴 become the name of a playboy? Taijin asked. I don't know, though playing the part of UA's top first-year student probably helps, 𝐿𝐼𝐼 said. What you talking about, all the ladies love me, 𝐬𝐬𝐴 said smugly. No, I'm pretty sure AI and Maria are definitely an exception. Oh yeah, those two are monsters. I feel like if I might go to sleep one night and if I wake up, then everything except for my head will be buried in some park. Oh yeah, just drag you out of bed, dig a hole in some park, drop you in and bury you. Only leaving the head sticking out of the ground, came Maria's voice. The four guys turned to see Maria and AI walking over to them. Well guys, if you excuse me, it seems it's time for me to buried, 𝐬𝐬𝐴 said as he stood up. He grabbed his trash and threw it away before leaving the restaurant with Maria and AI. So did you find something? We found some guy who apparently knows quite a bit about the big players in the criminal underground, AI told him. After asking him oh so nicely, he told us he heard of someone who might match your description. What description? 𝐬𝐬𝐴 asked. All I saw was a flash of light and the next thing I knew I was being dragged away heavily injured. Exactly. We didn't get any names either of the person or his group because the guy was killed by some villain. We captured them and apparently they thought his wife was cheating on him with the person. Not something to be proud of, but Deku has killed for much less. I think he may or may not have killed someone over a candy bar. No, I've told you already, he was the leader of a troublesome group and I made it clear that no one was to make a move. And he chose that time of all times to reach for the snack he had in his back pocket, Deku told him. In my defense, I thought he was reaching for a gun. Yeah well, we did manage to get some info from him before he was killed, Maria told him. Apparently there's a new player in the criminal underworld. They might be the one you're looking for. Okay, it might not be much but it's still information so thanks. I'll do some digging of my own.